Hello and welcome to Loaded Mag. All right, lads, all good?
All good,
Evening,
mate.
boys, all right?
All good, good. No Martin tonight, so we have to make do. But we have a special guest with us. He would say he's just an ordinary fan, that he only wrote one letter. We know, and you know, that he helped deliver our takeover. So tonight, I think it's time to raise a beverage and
I've only
say,
got me monster.
that'll do. Whatever you got, whatever you copy into yourself, and say, "Arise, Sir Keith Patterson." Welcome, Keith.
Hi,
Welcome,
lads,
Keith.
all right?
David Keith.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
Took me ages to think of that. Um, all right, Keith. Welcome back to Loaded. Your second appearance on Loaded. We hear you're getting out of YouTube altogether, but glad you could come back and join us for one last hurrah, at least.
I didn't know on Friday when I went on the show in NUFC Matters that I was going to leave, but Friday was a bit of a tough day, and I just watched it and weighed it all up, and I thought we've got the takeover, and so it just felt right. It felt right. I felt as though I'd get crashed in a little bit there. Sure, I mean they had a brilliant thing together, three amigos, and I've got massive respect for the lads, but they just opened it up for me, I think, to help us get this message out about the takeover. So when that happened, I just, I don't know, just the way things were going and the way there's lots of rubbish goes around after the takeover. There's a lot of people still sniping, and I just thought, you know what it is? Maybe he's not the best at this. Maybe I'm better at sitting back in the pub with a pint and just watching all that bickering going on. And I just thought about it, but I'd promised yous on last Friday. I think it was Thursday or Friday.
Thursday, Friday, yeah.
Thursday, Friday, I said to you, look, I'll do Loaded. And so I realised when I was stepping down, I thought, God, I've promised to do a show for them and one Paul will leave. So it wasn't planned, but it felt right. Like there's certain things happen in life when you can't change. I stood by a daughter. I've only got one daughter, and I stood by her. And did what was right to protect her. And as a result, I never saw her get married. With one daughter, I never walked her down the aisle. And I found out a couple of weeks ago that happened a year ago. You can't change that. I cannot go back and change that. On the Sunday, I'd rather run around the pitch with my shirt off. You know what I mean? Doing a few somersaults. But that day's gone. And what you've got to do, you've got to learn to take opportunities as they come along. And with you lads, I came on your show last time and you let us talk. And I thought you had me back. I thought you were straight. And I thought you didn't have agendas. And I just think, well, I've always said since, if you want to go on the show, go on Matters or go on Loaded. And I know you work together, the two of you. And that's two areas I've always felt safe. So I have a massive in debt towards the people at NUFC Matters for what they've done. I know a lot of you people started there. So it just felt right to bow out on their show. I didn't want to do it any other way, and I wanted to keep my word to you that I would do this. But it's been 14 months of fighting for this, and it took us 14 months to write one letter. So you can imagine if I'd gone on for 2 or 3 years, I might have been, I was sort of, I'm not a very fast writer. But it must have been some letter of mine. It's got the problem. What worries us this week, we're talking about is maybe having to write another letter. That's what's worrying us.
Exactly. With all this.
The other thing, I don't know if you noticed, but last time I was in Ireland, I've got this shirt. I don't know where it is. There it is. The Guinness crest. It's me Union Jack Newcastle top. And it's got the Guinness crest on, so I want tonight for you Irish lads.
I was thinking you didn't get the actual top in Ireland. I haven't seen many of them around.
Can I tell you something? I bought this top in Ireland. I bought this top in Dublin, in the city centre, like this. With it's the make on it's got Guinness written on the back. It's made by Guinness. So one of them big shops down the thing had this shirt in here. I got the backs embroidered with Land of Hope and Geordies. That's what it says on the back. I don't know what I'm going.
That's your protest shirt. I remember it from the pictures.
That's it. I wore it in London.
Yeah.
Keith, we were chatting there on Thursday, Friday, and yeah, you were saying to me, yeah, I'll come on, and yeah, hopefully I'll get you some good numbers. And I said, well, yeah, that's great, Keith, but we really want you on just to thank you more than anything else, because like without we all believe here that without your help, we would still be fighting the Premier League, and it probably would not have gone through. The cat case did twist their arm. I know you can spin it loads of different ways, and as the media have done, but we know that the cat was the real thing that pushed it over the line, like Alan Pardew would say, over the line. But yeah, so Keith, maybe we'll go. But do you want to kind of step us through as to, and I know we're going to get onto the juicier stuff of what's happening today with everything with the sponsorship thing, but maybe take us to where we are today.
How we got here?
Yeah, if you wanna.
Yeah. God, it's a good story because what happened is basically when the takeover stopped, Amanda Staveley came online and said it was time for the fans to stand up, and she intimated that there was some shenanigans going on, and she asked the Newcastle fans to come forward. I'd been working in a working career as a group managing director, and I'd been traveling the world, and along the journey fought a few court cases. So I fought one case in America, and I'd been to America on, I think, 22 weekends over a 2-year period, and eventually got a 10 million out of court settlement, which only paid $1 million due to insurance policy. And then I got involved in a competition case where both sides' fees were said to be 55 million. I'll put it in perspective. I think this case would be more 5, 6, 7 million. I think you struggle to get to 10 million in legals. It could do, but I think it's more that kind of area where it's at for to get to where it was and thrown out. If it had ran, it would have been much more. So when I watched what was being said, what was being done, I did some digging and I found out that a couple of large Premier League clubs, one of them that didn't visit Newcastle so long ago, were going out the way to happen what I thought was a legal manner against Newcastle. And what I did was I took some advice, just took some legal advice, and I went to one of your people, a guy from Northern Ireland, probably one of the best competition QCs in the UK, a guy called Robert O'Donoghue, and I just chatted to him, and I knew him well, friends, and I just spoke to him and said, what do you think? And basically what we did was we considered what would happen if fans took a case against the Premier League. And we discussed what would happen if the club did it, and what would happen if the buyers did it. And I just did 3 things. One, I went and made inquiries as to whether there was a willing buyer. Then I went and made inquiries as to whether there was a willing seller. And once I knew there was a buyer and a seller willing to deal, that in itself is anti-competitive. You've got something you want to sell and there's a willing seller, willing buyer, you should be allowed to sell. It's a fact of life. And if it was for reasons that the QC said would prevent it from happening, I probably would have walked away. But when I found out everybody was willing and people were stopping it being come through. Now, if people want to say it had nothing to do with anti-competitive behaviour, it was fact, it was about human rights or it was about piracy, then you need to just have a look what's happened the last 2 days, because what's happening now is, even though it's been passed and the law courts were about to pass it until they bottled it and dropped the case, you can see now exactly what's been played out. The last 2 days, since the takeover's gone through, the anti-competitive behaviour of the clubs that we compete against is starting to develop again. I then, this all coincided with a friend of mine, Peter Baker, coming along to see us and said, we want one of your letters. That was that one letter. And he says, just want a letter off you. And I said, what are you going to do with it? He says, we want you to write to Richard Masters. I already have. I've done a letter to him. And they said, well, can I put it on Facebook? And I said, yeah, as long as you don't put my name on it. And he put it on and just went apeshit. I mean, I had sort of 60 friends requests from people based in Newcastle, like in the first hour. And I said, how have they got hold of me? And he says, oh, I've got your name on it. Because at the bottom of it, I'd signed his name. We took that down. We took the name down and ran that. And then we he got together with a couple of lads, Dan and Marshy from Newcastle, 2 lads who helped him early doors, and he formed he did the War Fund thing. The one thing I'll say is, if that had worked, we signed Gordon up, who'd written an article in the mag, and he'd done a letter on the 7th of August. I did one on the 6th, and basically those 2 letters were 2 people more or less doing similar things, telling things. Mine was more pointed towards competition action because that was my background. Gordon's was more towards things that he saw as a football fan wrong in football. But I was saying, look, it's illegal. You're doing something called collective lobbying. You're guilty of collusion, and you're guilty of abusing a dominant position, which are 3 of the biggest things in competition law. And I could do that from my work experience. And then what happened? Off we went, and those guys, Gordon put his name up front, and they formed the War Fund Trust. And if people had bought into that, I think you'd have had the takeover 8 to 10 months earlier. And I think you'd have lost it. All that hassle you've had, I think you would have done without, because all them people were saying is, whether you want to spend a quid or a tenner, send it in here, because we've got a QC and we've got a case, and we need a fighting fund to do it. And people said, oh, it was a scam, and people didn't get behind it. So what happened is it was going to fold. So what I did was I set up NCSL with Gordon Stein, and we went out and paid ourselves, just me and him, for a QC and for lawyers, and we took an action where we took a case to the Premier League and did a letter before action. And what that's doing is it's building a case. It sends them the case over and says, you won't defeat this, and this is what we bring in, and you've got to give warning you're doing it. And then we got a response, and everybody says you'll get 2 fingers on 2 lines, and you won't get an answer. And we got a 9-page letter, and everyone said, wow, can't believe it. We got a 9-page letter, and it was full of panic. And the 6 arguments that I'd gone to the Premier League with and said, you're guilty of that, and that, they couldn't answer. Now, whenever you're trying to defeat somebody, whenever you're trying to get rid of a case, the first thing you should do is answer them. Tell them, say, Daz, you're wrong. You've just said that, and that. But there's the answer to that. And you give them the arguments. You say, now go away, be a good lad, and don't waste your money. But they didn't. They didn't answer any of the points. They just said, you haven't got enough money. Well, that was for us to judge. They said, you can't show enough loss, which we knew we could. And the third thing was, we won't expedite it. And that was the key. And the reason they said they wouldn't expedite it was because we were already running a case with Newcastle United. And the case they run with Newcastle was private. So I went up to the club, spoke to the club and said, I understand you're in a legal case. And they said, how the hell do you know that? And I said, I showed them the letter. And that letter would become part of their case because they breached the confidentiality. So they said, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to the press. I said, what for? I said, I'm going to tell every Newcastle fan there's actually a legal case going on between Newcastle and the Premier League, because the fans at the time thought the club had either bottled it or weren't taking the Premier League to court. But I said, the club need to know that Mike Ashley is taking them on. So we did that. And when the club realised I was going to the press, they went to the television and they put on TNTs and BBC that night, and it became 6 o'clock news. The club took action. And from then, the club worked with me, and I met the various QCs. I met Shahid Fatima, I met Nick DeMarco, the legal team. And then what the club did was they then asked me to come back, this time without Gordon, just with went first with Robert O'Donoghue, and then they asked us to go back just with Robert. And they just said, we want to keep the numbers as low as we can. And they brought in specific people. But what I noticed, they start bringing competition people into it. So there was me and my competition QC, and then there was DeMarco, Shahid Fatima, Justin Barnes, and competition people. And from then on, the rest is history. They built a case up. When me and Robert saw their case built, we said it's our case on steroids, because they had a lot of detail of dates that they'd worked on things. And Robert says they'll not defeat that case. The Premier League won't defeat it. And so all the way along, I knew if Mike Ashley, and I shouldn't say it, he's a multi-billionaire, but if he kept his bottle and saw it through, or if somebody else didn't come along and give him a better bid, because there was always bids that were coming in. I mean, I quoted here, John Texter, who bought Crystal Palace, spoke to me and said it was, if you back my bid, I could be the guy for Newcastle. And I just said, I couldn't back it, John, because one, I'm not important enough, but two, your wealth is described to be 600-700 million. Mike Ashley's is described being 2.5 billion, and he's saying he can't compete. So why could I back your bid? I said the fans would slate us for it, because basically I said to him, if you get the club, what would you do? How would you fund it? And he said, I'll raise money on the New York Stock Exchange. And this was going back to the days of John Hall and Freddie Shepherd, when they put the club, they went public, and Keegan was up in arms because Keegan said every time he wanted a decision, it took too long. So if that's the case, this is the way typically that's what the Glazers did with Man United. They've just apparently, again, I'm going to say things, allegedly raised 140 million and it's gone straight into their pockets. So that's why Man United are upset. And we had a really smashing lad, a gentleman of a bloke who's just put 90 million into Crystal Palace for 20%. And he was telling me that he would take our company, the New York Stock Exchange. And I thought, if it doesn't work, or if all them players Palace have just bought under Vieira come out with duck eggs, all his money, you're like funding it, you're financing it in a sense, but you're not going to get the club to be any further forward. So I said to him, I said, as much as I'd love you to get involved, because I know you, I just said that it's not something that could sort of put me back behind. And so all along, I was always worried through this journey that Mike actually took another bid on the table. And, I knew there was other people approaching the club. As I've just told you, John Texter was one of them. I know there was other people. And there was always the fear that if the PIF deal became too difficult and too challenged, that Newcastle United could just say, look, we've had enough of this. We're not going to get through it and sell it off. So the rest, the rest is pretty much, you can ask us questions about the rest of the journey, but, and I had a lot of encouragement along the way. I had encouragement of a lot of people. So like, for example, Nick DeMarco, he's a QPR fan, and we were working away, and the abuse I was getting a lot of abuse of idiots, and just all little morons. I mean, a lot of them aren't Newcastle fans, and if they can rattle somebody or slow somebody down, they'll stick rubbish on. So one week it would be Steve Wraith, they'd have a go at. The next week would be Steve Hasty. The next week would be me. The next week would be Liam Kennedy. And I remember getting an email one day off Nick, and it was in a private capacity. He says, I'm writing you as a QPR fan just to say, because as a QC, he couldn't write to us. He couldn't write to me as a QC, but he wrote as a QPR fan, said, I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing for your football club. It's amazing. Hats off to you, Keith. Keep going. Don't give up. And that was like, what I mean? That was like petrol in the tank. That was a bloke I looked up to and I had a lot of respect for, telling us what I was doing was right. And sort of telling us off record that it was appreciated what I was doing. So, and I used to get calls off these people asking us to find information, and I had information that nobody else had. So when we finally sent our files over, we did 90 gigabyte of evidence, which is, like people talk 90 megabyte a lot, but 90 gigabytes, some information. And we got that over to the club, and basically anytime anything come up, we sent it. So like I went on holiday 3 weeks ago, and every day I did emails to the legal team on information that people were passing through to us. So a lot of the fans helped indirectly and sort of aren't aware to what they're doing. Some people saying, have you heard of this? And I just said, I'll pass it on. So I was getting DMs. So we did that, and the club did it. And then what happened is the word I got from the legal team was we smashed them to pieces. And we didn't smash them to pieces on piracy. We didn't smash. I mean, the deal between Behind and the Premier League was done the day after, or 2 days after the Premier League had signed the deal off. So the deal was agreed between the main players much earlier than when it was announced. It was announced on the Thursday, but it was the Premier League that actually signed off on the Tuesday.
And that was all happening while we were waiting to see what was happening with the cat case. So would we get the next update from that? And so they were rattled in the background. So and the deal was being done.
They got rattled. They got rattled in July, and they got rattled because with the cat case looming over your head, what the cat case does, you'll get. I think there's been 5 lawyers online had a pop at me since it started, and they're all clowns. You know, they're all should wear clowns hats, because what you do is, if you're a foot surgeon, you wouldn't say that guy go in surgery and start telling somebody how to do a brain operation. And if you've got somebody that works on, vertebrae back, he doesn't go in and start telling someone to do a cartilage on somebody's knee. They stick and they specialize what they do. Well, actually, lawyers are exactly the same. So in legal profession, you specialize in a particular field. And I don't mind apologizing for, I can only say them's the areas I've worked in, but I'm not a lawyer. And they used to come online and say to me, "You're not a lawyer." I'm thinking, "No." I'm thinking, did you really go to college? Did you really get a degree in law? Where does it say I'm a lawyer? What I am is I'm a buyer of legal services. So I've bought £25 million worth of legal service for one case. So I think I've got a reasonable idea of what a good competition person looks like. And I have had QCs where I've terminated the contract mid-case because I didn't think we were going to go the right direction. So all I did was I became somebody who became proficient in understanding the people who provide services for competition law. Lawyers come on and say, I mean, all those tweets are there, and they turn around and say, competition case or the cat case will have nothing to do with the takeover. I'm thinking, really? And then you look at what they do for a living, and they've got 0 competition experience. So how would they know? How would they know? How that works. And basically, the competition law in this case, the reason that I was able to sell that to people like Nick and Shahid and Justin was I was able to turn around to them and say that when you run your arbitration case, you're not afforded disclosure. When you do an arbitration case, think about it as like an in-house case. First of all, the Premier League would have 2-1 majority on the bench. But worse than that, it's the whole arbitration was to investigate how they applied the rules of the ODT. How did they apply the rules to the owners and directors test? So where on earth was, Tottenham and Man United and Liverpool having a pop at our takeover going to come up in that? Because they wouldn't be mentioned in that arbitration. All they'd be saying is, you asked for that. Did you give it the advice? Were you fair in how you applied it? It was more like sort of recess as to what they did back in time. But since that event came out, there was something called the European Super League, which you all know about. So where was do you think that, for example, one day all those clubs got together and said, "I tell you what to do, we're going to have a European Super League. And I tell you what I'll do, I'll ring me pal over at Real Madrid, I'll get him in, and that kid at Barcelona is a canny lad, and I'll give him a lad a ring. And I tell you what, Everton, you can't come in. No, Leicester, and now you've won the title, you're not allowed. It's going to be us 6, and we're going to look after each other. There's going to be no relegations. So you can never get relegated. And there's more money." Do you think that happened one night? Do you think it happened on a podcast? Or did it happen in a pub? Or did it happen via email? So all that evidence was building up, and it was going to sink a battleship. That would have took anybody down. And that's why I think they're on dodgy ground now. I think they're in a very dangerous area. So what I'm saying to them is, I'm saying, you'll only get that out in a competition case. And the reason being is, when you run a competition case, people call it a CAT, but just the difference is a competition CAT. Competition case could be a full-blown case, and a CAT case is a tribunal. It's short, it's quicker, it's more instant. But when you go to CAT, you are afforded, there's no such word as confidentiality, which is the Premier League's buzzword. Everything they do is confidential. I mean, you can imagine if the Premier League died tomorrow and they had a coffin and they had a headstone that would just say, "Psst," wouldn't it? Think about it, because everything they do is on whispers. And every time, the club said to me, get this to run public, and we win. I said, "Really?" And I said, they promised us. They said, you get this case to run, and if you do, Newcastle will get a takeover with PIF. And I was blown away because I thought this is easier than you think. And when you get a competition case to run, there comes a period about halfway through. If it's going to run in 3 months' time, about 6 weeks stage, they'll sit down and say, Chris Hall, go and give us your disclosure words, and you've got to come up with. Let's suppose we agree 20 words each. You've got to agree them 20 words each and say, right, I want to see every document, every WhatsApp, every text, every email, every written note, everything. So I want to see those words when you mention the word consortium. I also want to see all the words where you mention Staveley. I want to see the words where you mention Newcastle. I want to see where you mention the word Saudi. Now, when you ask for Saudi, you then get Saudi Arabia, or you get Saudis. So whatever word you do, it comes up. It just searches those documents. And basically, I said, when they do the searches on disclosure, you will get all the collusion that's taken place where them clubs try to compete over and above you. But more to the point, if you get the word Saudi, you'll get letters where people have said, don't let the Saudis come into football. You know what I mean? So you can imagine what's coming. And then we were told, we were told where to snip. We will get letters from journalists, and we get phone calls of people telling us where to look. Because what happens when this comes out, people do get up to mischief. So we're getting little tips and winks and saying, look here, look there, try this. And then letters would turn up that we didn't know about. And some of them were quite damning. So we came across something called the Behind letter. And I said to the club, have you seen this? They said, no. So I sent it around them. Basically, that letter was sent by the CEO of Behind to tell the Premier League and the Big Six to oppose the takeover of Newcastle United. And that in itself, just in that document itself, is classed as collective lobbying. So it's when you've got skin in the game. So they had a financial investment in the game, and what they did was they would obviously financially benefit from selling media rights to the Premier League, and once that came through, they would persuade those Big Six people to keep Saudi Arabia out, who in themselves would buy media rights. So you're actually preventing somebody from doing something that you do, and we were told by a QC that the only thing we were missing on that document was a proof that it had gone out. So one of our jobs in this was to get proof that it had gone out, and that was what I was given the task to do. So I went out and did things which will come out at a later date, and gained proof from senior people in Behind that letter had actually gone out to clubs, and I had that in writing. I gave it to the QC, and he said, "Game, set, and match." Because you only have to, in competition law, you only got to win one thing. You only got to win 1 point. If you act illegally, then it's game over. So once we knew we had that, and we gave it to the club, we knew that the club ran the case. If Mike actually stuck with it, we knew that they would do it, and that was always the risk. Risk as was if the club dropped it, or if they got a, someone come along with a quick 280 million and said, "Well, we'll just buy it. Forget your court cases." So that was always the fear.
Keith, I just wanted to ask, a lot of people have said over the last few months, last number of months, regarding the cat case, and asked the question why the club didn't take it on earlier. Is there any particular reason why the club took so long to take the case on? Because I know that you mentioned, I think you got the letter around Christmas time, didn't you, from the Premier League, and they talked about you guys having the financial might to be able to go up against them. At that point, why didn't the club take on the case then? Why did it take so long for them to then agree to take it on off your hands?
We started talking to the club in October last year. That's when we started. I wrote the Masters in August, worked with the QC September, October. The guys who set up War Fund, once we realised that, they put money into it, and they sent the money back to everybody. They said basically there's a lack of belief in what you're doing. So, and I just said that's at the point when I said this either dies or we run it ourselves. And there was me and Gordon decided fund it ourselves. We decided to put the money in ourselves and do it. So we paid for it, and then there's loads of abuse coming out where people are saying they've ripped people off. I mean, you know, like I haven't had a penny off anybody, and everything I've done I've paid myself. But then we got to the point where we ran the case, got the letters done. We then got the we sent the letter before action out, and we were talking to the club right the way through that. From the minute we knew the club were running a legal case and they were running a legal battle, and that went on television, we were in talks with the club, and we were happy to run this case ourselves on our own funds, to be a pain in the arse, because the Premier League had gone on record to say through COVID that there was no football was nothing without fans. So for some fans to spend out their own money and take a case on seemed massive principle. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to run the case, and we wanted the club to what's called join the action. And if you join in action, you can join if there's a competition action anywhere in Britain where somebody's been financially harmed, you can legally go and join that action. So we wanted the club to join our action, and we would run it. What we realised quite quickly is it's an expensive thing to do. So once we got the letter before action, it was then a case of how we did the next bit. And at that stage, we were talking to the club, and it was our thoughts that the club could dance through this case because they had massive money, massive loss, and they were at the front of the queue, whereas we had funds and enough funds to run a competition case. We had less loss than the club, obviously, less loss than the buyer, because the buyers were reputed to pay a deposit of 14 million, so we had less loss than them, and we had. But when you standing came up with like Pete at the start, you know, they all said, "Oh, you haven't got any standing," and all the staff that worked at the club who were furloughed had standing because Amanda said if she bought the club, she wouldn't have put them through furlough. So they all had standing, but a lot of the season ticket holders that didn't get the money back had standing. So did a pal of mine has 2 shops in Newcastle. Mickey Edmondson, he has Back Page near the Newcastle Arms, and he has the one, the Metro Centre. He had standing because his business suffered. You know, his turnover probably double now. So he had massive standing in that business. And so what we'd have done is probably done a test case. We'd have probably, you know, took an action where we put forward 6 fans. We'd have funded it, and we'd have given enough loss in them 6 fans. There'd been a season ticket holder, a shop owner, a hotel owner that suffered because this takeover didn't go through. So we weren't worried on that. But the one thing we were worried about is they wouldn't put us ahead, Pete. So when we were knocking on the door at the club in October, Pete, we couldn't get them to say to us, right, we're running it tomorrow, but they said we're going to run it. And it took me until April. And a lot of, I knew the case was running 2 months before it ran. So when it was announced that the case was running, that was just when I was allowed to tell people it was running. But the papers and everything was served on the Premier League much earlier, like a couple of months earlier. And I was obviously tied to NDA, and I couldn't say that. It's just a fact. It's out there now. I mean, you know, at the time it was you know, under wraps, but it's out now. Once it ran, I could have guessed, say, well, I've known that for a couple of months. So it took me October, November, December. I got a threat in December, the day before Christmas, and that was like a threat to sue and that. And then we just were laughing, you know, we went away, and they said, the lawyer said, how do you feel? I says, over the moon. I says if we've rattled them that much, if I'm the last thought of Masters and Hoffman's mind before they go for the Christmas holidays, I says, boy, I won't have a drink at Christmas. I won't have a good time. But think about it, like why would we bother them so much? But we were like in the faces, and their lawyers were writing us more than once, you know, more than twice, more than 3 times. You know, telling us legally, and telling us that even though we were saying, come and get us, you've got a quid in that company. That NCSL has a quid in the till, so come and get it. They're around 50 pence each. and then they sent us a letter saying, do you know, as directors, you've got, and then they start going on saying that they can come after you beyond what's in the till. And I said, well, it's going to be some limited company, this, because the reason you set up limited company is so you got limited liability. And then they turned around and said, well, you know, we'll come after you individually. And I think you can't. That's why it's an Olympic company. And then you just, you know, it's just them. They're just these bullies, the horrible people. I've massively lost respect for the football authorities in this country. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got trolls telling you won't do it. You've got Premier League saying you can't do it, you won't do it, you won't win. And then there comes a point when you think, well, it's a shot to nothing, this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you're a bloke from Durham and you think, I wonder if I could do this. I wonder, you know, just think about it. Think about it, sat with grandkids and going, saying to yourself, you know, like, I actually changed that. And I was stood with a guy, Neil Mitchell's dad, George Mitchell. Marvellous fella, like one of the, and I stood, you know, there's a photograph on Twitter today, and I promise I won't be doing that tonight, but I was bubbling. I was like a bag of shit. I was just sat there, tears running down my face. And he just said, what you've done is marvellous. And he started telling us how good I was. And I wasn't ready for it. You know, like I just thought, George, man, have a look at yourself. If you want to have a look what good is, just have a look in the mirror. And I just said to him, promise me one thing. I says, I want to go one day to Wembley. And I says, I want to be an eye shot, you and your Neil. I just want to be able to see you two when we lift a trophy. And I just filled up. You know, I thought, you dozy prat. I thought, you caused this. You know, you're going to get a guilty plea because I just thought George was shaking and I'm still looking at him and like it's the first time I've met him. You know what I mean? I've seen him on NUFC Matters, and it was the first time I met him. And I thought, and he was telling me that he was grateful for me and that I was special. And I was like looking at him thinking, no, mate, you're special. And like I just thought of his son stuck in Saudi where he couldn't come home through lockdown. And I just, you know, and there's a bloke who took a picture of us. I think it was Peter Baker. I think he posted it. And then my missus got it. And my missus posted it today, you know, she said, like, that just sums up, you know, Keith. And I just thought, you know, like, I can't keep that in. But I'm at the point now where I'm dry. I've cried all I can cry. You know, I've been let down by people. I've been, you know, like attacked by people. I've been abused, accused. And even today, I get told, have you fallen out with Liam Kennedy? Have you fallen out with Steve Hasty? Did you get thrown off NUFC Matters? Watch your back. You know what I mean? Apparently, I'm Tommy Robinson's best mate now. Like, again, anything you can chuck at me now. It's just, and I just think that's why it's time to go. You know what I mean? Because I've caused enough mayhem in all of this. And, you know, people say, well, why don't you go and work for the club and help them with the next round? The club's got all the money. They don't need me. I'm just a daft, simple bloke from Durham. You know, the club will go and employ what they've got to employ. But I think what is certain is the anti-competitive behaviour won't stop.
Keith, I wanted to ask you, mate, just while we've got you. I wanted to ask you about the Cat Haven. Now, I've got no legal background, anything like that, and you know, when the Cat Haven was on and they said it was going to be public and people could dial in, I must admit I had it on in the background while I was working, and I was thinking, oh, I'll just have a little listen, kind of thing. Literally after like half an hour, I was proper glued to it. I had a call with you, didn't I, Richie, over it? We had like a little half-time chat over it when he's on a break, and I just wanted to know like how you felt about it, Keith, because obviously you're hearing it all. You've obviously got a better understanding of it than what the average person has, but knowing that you've helped put that together and, you know, obviously watching it all unfold, like how did that make you feel? Like, how did you feel when you were watching that? And, you know, what was your opinion on it? Did it go how you expected? Did it go better than what you expected? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
I don't like pissing up people's backs, but that's a brilliant question, because a lot of questions people haven't asked us, and that question is just hit home, because I can't tell you the relief I had that morning when I pressed that button and on the screen I saw Nick DeMarco, because I've been sat on Zooms, Nick DeMarco, in that very same room he's in. He's got an upstairs room in Brighton, and he's in there, and you know the background, you know, and when he comes, and I'd been on a Zoom with Danny Jowell as well before. I'd been with obviously the competition team. And when I was there, I sat there and I just thought, shit, it's happened.
Yeah.
And then this thought come, oh, you daft lad, what have you done? What have you done? You know what I mean? What if this goes wrong? You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And I'm thinking like,
pressure was on then.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like when I was a lad, you know, I thought the furry old man's gone berserk. What's he done? Oh, you know what I mean? And it was like hellish relief. You know, it was like that was to me, shirt off, running around the pitch. You know, that was like the moment when they were on screen. And I tell you why, Chris, because this might sound blasé or arrogant, and I don't want to come over like that. But I just thought, I know more than all you lot know. And I tell you what, we've won now. And when I saw that screen start, I thought in the minute run up to the cat case, I thought that it was going to get binned. I thought that morning there was going to be an announcement come out. This has happened or that's happened. And to me, it would never have been the same if it's, I mean, I'd rather they settled the case that day because it would have saved all the grief.
Yeah.
But to get the cat case to run and then get a takeover was like two massive tick in the boxes for me. You know, I felt like a lot of people say I'm special, but in a nasty way. But I felt special in the sense that, yeah, like, I mean, pals would go, oh, you're very special. So, but I just felt as though, like, yes, I just felt as like I wanted to like text 1,000 people and say, hold on to your kicks because we're going to get a takeover. And I spoke to my mate today, like for real, Darren Pearson, and we do something called Last Man Standing. And basically, when you go on there, you pick a team every week, and if your team wins, you go to the next round, and just among all our pals, it took the 9,500. And there's a lad I used to play football with, who's young, he was a good goalie, Jeff Williams. He was in last night, and I haven't seen the results, but apparently he needed Arsenal to win, I think, so they mustn't have won. Did they not win last night?
2-2.
No, 2-2.
If he won last night, he got like $9,000 or something. And then they've said,
no.
so Darren said, send your teams in for next week. This is what he said this morning. And I says, I told you there'd be a takeover, son. I told you. I said, and I played golf with a lad called Dean Gray, who's always the biggest skeptic. He's black and white daft. And I played golf with him, and every morning he goes, "Are we still having that takeover, son?" And just bursts out laughing at us. These are my pals. But he just looked at us, he just says, and then there's two Mackhams and two black and whites, and the Mackhams, Potsy and Lee, who turn around and go, oh, he's still not going on about that, is he? So every week I got ridiculed, you know, like, so I got ridiculed at the golf, I got ridiculed at work, I got ridiculed at home. My family thought I was a bit nuts. You know, like it's just, you've just got to be grateful. But, you know, that question you've just asked there, the relief when them men come on the screen, because I knew that we'd smash them to bits. What did I think when the case was running, which was probably part of your question as well? I thought we embarrassed the Premier League. And if I'd been running that case myself, I would have been furious if anybody was so unprofessional to be slipping pieces of paper under a QC's nose and not being smart enough to do it off screen. Because he had more pieces of white paper shoved on his nose that day. He could have built himself a white flag. He stuck them together. And I just thought, you know, get a bit of class. The other thing as well is, and I'll say this with respect, I mean, Adam Lewis, the guy who represented the Premier League, you've got to have utmost respect for. He was QC of the year last year, albeit, you know, I'd love to see him in a case against O'Donoghue because he's mauling. But when I was there, there was one thing I would say to them is, next time you have people in the room, check the reflections beforehand, because you could see the reflections on the screen. And a lot of people text me and said, hey, there's a few people in that room. And some legal people said, have a look at the side of the screen. You could see reflections of people in the room. So there's more. And you know it's like if there's a boxer goes into the ring, by all means talk to him when he's 3 minutes when he's getting cooled down. But when people's talking to him, you always see the good fighters where one person talks. There's one trainer's taught the boxer and said, do this, I've told you, jab him, get out, jab him, get out. And there's one person talking. What happens when 6 people's talking to the boxer? His head's like a pack of cards. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know if he wants a shit shave or a shampoo. And here, there's people sticking notes with it. This is guy's a top QC of the year. So who was putting the notes under? Was it Masters? Was it Hoffman? Or was it people that weren't top QC of the year? And I felt for him. I felt that guy. I thought, God, they're getting the battering. And I thought Danny Jowl slapped him around the ring. I didn't think it was close. And you know, bear in mind, I was lucky because I knew that from the club side, they were smashing them to pieces. You know, that's the phrase used, and they didn't get close to the club. They couldn't run the club's case. So I was lucky that I knew that. And then people were saying, I don't think it's going through. A lot of people said it won't go through. And I kept sticking with it and saying, it'll go through. So I was lucky in a sense, but I didn't know for definite until the day before. The day before on the Wednesday. And I guess the reason I didn't know for definite is because they're waiting for the Premier League to approve it. The Premier League approved it on the Tuesday, I'm told. Wednesday morning, I found out it was definitely going ahead. And then it went through on Thursday night. So I had that period, you know, I had a period when I had to keep my mouth shut. And that was hard. Who do you tell if you know Takeover's going through? Yeah. You know, who would you tell? And you could get criticism of all your mates, but if you only tell one person, I was sat with my girlfriend Karen, and I said I told her it was going through. I got a phone call that night before, explaining that it'll get announced tomorrow, and I was thinking, brilliant, you know what I mean? Like it was nice to find out, you know, a day before that it was going off. And I only rung one person. I phoned one person up because I'd given me word that when I found out, I'd tell him. So I just told him I shouldn't have done it, but I thought he was solid, and I thought he was the kind of person that would keep his mouth shut.
Can you say who it was?
I know who it was. It was Toon Tippix. He told me he would have fortune on it.
It was a guy with an Irish name, actually.
Do you know what? I was just laughing to myself then, Keith, because I was smiling, thinking of you knowing about the takeover. And like, obviously, I've seen you in all your Saudi gear, and I'm just picturing you in the house with your Saudi gear, just waiting to come out the house and celebrate.
Yeah.
It's this guy.
Right.
I found who it was. I found it. This guy. That's who you told. You never said that, and Chris.
God, all right. You're gonna have to do us a favor. You've got any of them pictures, send us them because I'm keeping them. I told a guy who just got massive respect for. It was called Declan. So it was a guy called Declan I phoned, and he kept his word. It was Declan Donnelly. That's what I just spoke to him. I told him that I would tell him, and they'd been in the studio recording a show, massive quiz show that they're running in January, and he chatted us, and I just said to him, I said, look, I promised I'd ring you. And I was sat there in the house, and I just all this energy was falling out my body, and sort of I was shaking a bit, and I thought, like, what happens if something happens to me tonight? And I haven't told nobody, it doesn't happen. So and I just said, look, I made a promise you when we first met. I said, yeah, I'll tell you if it was going through. And I said, I know you're a man of your word. And I'll never forget it. I just said, the takeover will go through. It'll be announced tomorrow. And he just said 3 words, and he said it 3 times. And I just, you know, like he's the most magical lad in the world. And he just said, shit a brick. And and then he went, shit a brick. And then he went, shit a brick. And I just felt as though I goes, because he put in words what I was thinking, and I was thinking, I could shit a pile of bricks, you know what I mean? Because it was just like, it was one of them things I'll never forget. And we talked it was 20 to 11 at night or something, and we talked for about 20 minutes, and he just said, he goes, God, this week's going to drag on because it was everything. He's no different to you 5, you 4. He's just like you. He's just a Newcastle supporter, and he's just successful entertainer, but when he puts his top on, or when he goes to match, he becomes exactly like you. I mean, we met in Barcelona years ago, and the 2 of them are with 3 kids the same height as them. There's no heavy minders like that. It was 3 kids, and they said to me, I was going to get some autographs for the band, and he says, go outside, they've got postcards outside. So I went outside, got these postcards, come back in, they're gone. I thought, shit, we set up. They must have thought, get rid of that Raji over there, because he's doing our head in. And when I come in, I was stood there, all these postcards, and there's no one on deck. And then I look down, they're waving down the back. They're waving up, and they've gone for like a pizza. They say, sit down, do you want some? And I just thought, you were unbelievable people, you. So, you know, like, when you've got a football club like ours, and when you've got fans like ours, but you've got fans like them, do you know what I mean? And like, you know, 1 minute you might look at, I don't know, if you think of some of our fans, like Brian Johnson, or if you looked at like, you know, Jimmy Neal, or people that have some oomph when they walk in the room, but like Ant and Dec would happily stand at the back or stand at the front, but they're just pure football fans. And the bug that's Newcastle United is with everybody that's on here tonight, but it's also with them. You know, they're just amazing people. And when you can phone a bloke up who's a household name and he says shit a break, you just think, God, it means exactly the same to you as what it means to me. You know what I mean? So it was just great. Like, you know, I don't know.
It's quite weird. Keith, I was going to say, kid, it's quite weird that you say that on that, because I was watching the build-up with the Ben on Sunday on the telly, and we're just saying about all the, obviously, the new owners coming out and stuff like that. And he was more shocked that Ant and Dec were actually in the crowd. He was just over the moon that Ant and Dec was there as well watching. He was, you know, that's just how relatable they are, even to a 12-year-old. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like, he knows how much of a Newcastle fan both of them are. And just to see them there on the telly, it just hit home to him. It was just like, it was over the moon to see them there, celebrate with everybody else.
I think when you see them there, and they're so humble, but when, you know, like, if you look at someone like Kevin Keegan, that's why, for me, I'd love to see a statue of him, you know, built. Yeah. He's done so much for the club, and I'd like to see a statue inside the ground. And I'd like to see any statues that's outside brought in, you know, like Shearer's statue. I'd like to see a Shearer statue, and you know, like there's people who I've watched over the years, who I've got massive respect for, great players. I'd like to see them players back at the club. You know, like, I'm a big Peter Beardsley fan. I'd like to see him back at our club, because, you know, I think so much of the bloke. I think he did so much on the football field. But when you talk about Keegan, if you talk to someone like Beardsley about Keegan, they just wax lyrical, because they all adore the bloke. And when you talk to Keegan, he convinces all of us that he's just as bothered as we are. And I met down London, and he was there, and I was with loads of lads in Newcastle, Jeff Jameson and Kevin Brady from Ireland, and we went down with this. There was this big transport event from, you must say, in the Woodland, trucks around the village and around the country, Woodland, and Woodland were sponsoring this big transport down. Keegan was the after dinner speaker, so we got like nearly an hour with him backstage before he went on, and then at the end he formed this queue. It was about 500 people, queue as long as your arm, about 500 people going down and down, queuing up, and he was going to sign the autographs and have a photograph with every one. The queue must have lasted an hour. Anyway, we were getting beers, and we were in the queue, and when we got the queue, because we like to laugh, like, Keegan, we stood there waiting, and we got the camera, and this is we give the camera to Keegan. We says, can we have a photo, Kevin? He went, yeah, and put his arms out. I says, no, and we shoved him. We all pushed him to the front. We said, we want you to take the picture of us. And Keegan just like looked at us. He just went, what? And so we give Keegan the camera, and I've got a photograph where we took a Keegan take a picture of us. And Keegan was, funny enough, with the camera. And most people who's as famous as that would tell you to get lost. They would chase you. But not Keegan. He just said, only Geordies would ever do this to me. Like he says, you unbelievable. And so we give him the camera. And you know when your mobile goes off, he was touching the button. He was touching the button. Then he started putting the code in the phone. He's going, I can't get it to work. It goes, no, maybe it's because it's my phone. And he's trying to put his code in my phone. And you just see, and in the end, honestly, he still went ahead and took the photograph. And then we got a picture with him, and he was, I tell you what, we had about an hour and a half with my dad. He's just like all the rest of them. He's just, there's something about Newcastle. Like Robert Lee wasn't from here, but you just see his eyes light up when he talks about Newcastle. And that's what we've got. And that's why when people are abusing us this week again, about, you know, selling our souls and all this garbage. It's just a paid for war. If you look at, there's a girl that's got in touch with us called Irina Sukerman. And if you look at her, she more spends a living out of studying this, and she said these people are funded, and it's part of the geopolitical war. So it's you get this abuse, but does it bother us? Are any of you particularly bothered about all the crap that's been going on? As any is, you know, it's going out there, and does it bother you? I mean, we're going to get crap until we've won trophies, and we're going to get, every time we get beat in a cup final, everyone's going to laugh.
They'll love it.
Yeah, but Chris, I'm going to ask you something. I'd rather get beat in the cup final and everyone laugh than not go to the cup final.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, we just want to be there, don't we? We just want to be there.
Beat the
Johnson Paint trophy. Said. I'm just thinking. I feel sorry for Declan Donnelly tonight. Ant is probably watching this and going, "You knew, and you never told me."
He always, they both tell each other everything. Apparently, was also, it's like people said to us. I've never told anyone that story. The only person who knew that was Karen, my girlfriend. Nobody knew that who I'd told. You know what I mean? And I've got a lot of mates. And then they said, like, why didn't you tell us? Like, how did you keep that for a day? And I said, well, I had to. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, could you imagine if you went and told 3 people and it got out? And you know, so it is what it is, isn't it? It's just, and then I went to ground 4 o'clock and met Liam Kennedy. And I was up outside the ground when the news went up. And I would come out to 9 Bar and they all erupted at the bottom of the, like, St. James Boulevard was called, and when that happened, it was still a relief. It was a bit like when Chris said the court case was a relief because it had started, and I knew the result, and I knew the takeover was happening, but it was still a massive relief to get, you know, to say what's actually in the yellow ticket tape on Sky.
How did it feel being in and around the atmosphere? Because you were there for quite a while, weren't you? Part of the celebrations. How did it feel? Was it like how we react when we score a goal, or was it a million times better?
There was a lot of people doing that. There was a lot of people who were jumping around. There was a funny thing. You've just hit hell of it. It's a story I've never told, but because Liam said, but it was a great feeling. And I remember hugging Liam Kennedy, and it was like we wouldn't let go of each other. And I just, you know, when you're going somewhere, I think, shit, we've done it, because he's been massive to me. He's been huge. And so we're hugging each other. And I'm sure we maybe started crying, but didn't let the other one know it was, because it wasn't the manly thing to do. So instead of looking like 2 lovers down at the train station when they're parting, we probably just, but the hug lasted a bit long, if you know what I mean. Like we probably didn't let go quick enough.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
It was like we danced for a while. But,
candlelit dinner, the whole lot.
But it was a good story down there, because as you come down from the ground, we were stood. I was stood when it first kicked off. I was stood near the Bobby Robson statue. I was stood next to Sir Bob. I thought, what a lovely place to stand when this is happening. Yeah. And then all the top Gallagher tourists started to fill up, and all the flags started coming out, and then all the young ones were jumping and going pretty berserk. You know what I mean? They were like going a bit nanas, and I was thinking, you know, that's where the age thing comes in. Maybe I'm a bit older. It's like, because I always think I'm 17. I'm always think I'm like a big bear, and like I still do somersaults and cartwheels and crap like that. So, like one day I'm going to do it. My back's going to go off, and then they're going to take us away on the stretcher. But when you think you can do it, you know what I mean? So then we're outside the ground, and they got a football out, and they started playing football. Meanwhile, Liam rings up Steve Hasty, and like on a night like that, you really want, you know, to come. And Steve Wraith, he struggled that night, and he did an interview. He did a cracking interview. He was dead kind to me, and I'll always appreciate what he said. And we obviously wanted him to come out, because he's suffered so much on this journey, and you just wanted Steve to be there because he's put so much in. You just thought, come on, come out. That's what I wanted to do, and I said, oh, get him out, and I mean, for a couple of days, and And I think it was more to do with, the team of like Owen Brown and Richard Slister and Rafa were obviously in liaison with Steve, and Richard died, and Steve just said, when I knew they were coming to the club and Richard wasn't going to be there, it was so hard for me. It just went. He said, he seemed as though he was talking about like a funeral experience the next day rather than the joy of a takeover. Yeah. And then it hit me a couple of days after, similar. You know, I had a day when I just thought, all that work, all that getting up, all that checking, all that this, and then she's gone. You know, there's that void, and it did feel weird. So I understand where Steve come from, but I phoned him twice to make sure he was all right, and I never heard from him. And some of the lads rang, and he just wouldn't answer his phone. He just went offline. He just went offline that night, so we couldn't get him over as much as we wanted him there. But what we did, we got Steve Hasty and Jed Hasty, and Jed's son, Sonny. So we all stood there, Liam Kennedy, and that place has gone berserk. There's a bloke got an Arab suit on. He's got a ghetto blast, and he's dancing in the street. And the police are trying to get us onto the road, and it was just mayhem. The crowds are getting bigger and bigger, and you just got to go, this is going potty, this. It's like, it's just going bananas. And then this football's going all over. Now, you know, when people get a ball, they decide how high can you kick a ball. So it's going like 80 feet in the air and come up down. Anyway, Liam tells a story. He says, we're all stood there. And he says, I just saw you. Because I keep forgetting me. I just saw you. Just get over. Press on people's shoulders. I jumped up, pulled my head back. He says, they were just all stood with the mouth open. The ball come over. And I headed it. And I must have headed it about 60 yards. It must have gone like half a football field. And I've just been seen on telly how the damage it causes heading the ball. And I'm thinking, that ball could have been one of them old cases. But I just got up and headed. And I just felt so good. You know what I mean? I felt like a youngin again. And I thought to myself, like they just fell about laughing. They said, "How the hell did you do that?" I said, "It's a canny player every day." Like, and we went back to the pub and we went in the Strawberry. And when we got on the Strawberry, I say I'm too old. That young lad who's this top singer, what they call him again?
Sam Fender.
Sam Fender. He was there, and we were within a yard of him when his mate got on the
yeah.
He got the saxophone out and started playing Local Hero, and you're just in there. And you're just like, how good's this? Like, how good's this? And even now, I'm just brimming. I was like so happy that like you had anything to do with it. You know what I mean? And like, it doesn't matter really what happened. I mean, it has happened. And I'll go to my grave knowing what I did. And you know, like the private messages I've had thanking us off the people who matter for what I did. But it's just been there. It's just been in that pub. And seeing so many people that's been so low for so long, like feeling as though it's their time, and people going to the toilet singing, having a wee, and they're singing, dribbling all over the shoes, and they're just singing away, and they're singing out the tune, and they're singing shite songs, but they're just so happy. And it was like that on Sunday when we got beat, but it didn't matter, did it really? You know, there's loads of games left. We're not going down. It just meant like, you know, it's part of the crack. So I've got to say it was amazing. It was. The night on the Thursday night was amazing. It was amazing on Sunday.
Keith, maybe we should bring it back to where we've heard now of how the West was won, let's say, but let's bring it to where we are today, and the news today with the sponsorship deal and the 18 clubs voting against internal deals, let's say, or with the deals with that's linked to the ownership. What's your thoughts on that? And where I know there was the questions at the very, very start from Chris A was, will the legal team and will the club use the same legal team maybe even to go and fight that case? Is there a need for another letter from yourself or from someone else, or where do we go?
It took us 14 months to do the last one. You don't want to know one of them, like. And the other thing is, Peter Baker's been barred from our house anyway. So if he come along tomorrow saying I want a letter, he wouldn't get any case. We've got, you get these fingerprints, to let you through a door where we've got like a CCTV, and like Baker's face is just banned. Anybody that looks like what they call him, of Kojak's right hand man, what they call him. The big fat lad, Stavros. Anybody looks like Stavros can get through all gates. So where's that? I mean, it's I think I spoke to QC tonight, who said that the timing was very suspect. To how can I explain this? I'm not doing anything extraordinary now. I'm just sort of saying, when you chat to somebody who earns his living in competition law, and I said, what do you make of that? 20 clubs in a competition that legally have to compete, and of which it's a legal act to try and prevent somebody competing. But if you read the Institute of Directors report on cartels, it's actually a legal act to think about stopping somebody from competing. So that's how much you must avoid that topic. Now, think about that, and think about 19 of them clubs being invited to a meeting to discuss how one club got investment in their club.
Keith, just to interrupt that quick, why do you think, and I know you're probably going to lead on to this, but why do you think that Man City abstained from voting for the
because it was unlawful. It was unlawful, and they've actually done similar dealings. That's why I think that's probably what people go along with.
I think Man City's funding the probably second richest club in the world.
I wonder who the richest is.
Third, maybe.
Did I say that? And they probably want to spot a massive club. I've got to talk sensible. I think Man City will be spending millions and tens of millions at the moment on defending what they believe is legally right. I think they will. I think there's some shocks coming. I think there's some surprises coming, and I think you'll find that there'll be more people in time realise that what Newcastle has done should give hope to the other 14 clubs. So if there was no Newcastles, that means you could never get a takeover big enough to change your world. If there was no Leicesters, it means there was never a league where you could win a title without that money. You've got to have Leicesters and you've got to have Newcastles, because you've got to book the rules. I think with Man City, they'll turn around and say, we're going through exactly the same argument. I think Man City will have, they'll preempt what's coming. They'll know exactly what Newcastle's going to get. But I think Man City will be several months down the line to what we are now. I think that the owners of our club have a good relationship with the people from Man City. I think there'll be a lot of empathy there, and I think Man City will become an ally of Newcastle, and I think that's shown already. So I wasn't really surprised that two of them voted. I was more surprised that 3 days after a takeover, that the Premier League not only invited 19 clubs to meet them to discuss this, they also said that the reason they didn't invite Newcastle was because they didn't think it would be an open and frank meeting. I think the term was used, frank. And when I see that, I think that touches on honesty. So why would 19 clubs not talk openly about Newcastle? And while Newcastle was missing, what is it that those 19 clubs could talk about with Newcastle not being present? I don't get that. And when I spoke to QC, he just said the timing is very suspect. Now, when the QC says the timing is suspect, the Geordie will say it's a heap of shite. So you always get a more mild, more conservative description from someone that level. But timing is suspect from the QC says, start digging, guys, because this isn't good. Then it could be said or even proven that the Premier League had a duty to the 19 clubs to prove that they'd acted lawfully and that they'd acted correctly. So maybe they did be afforded a warning. But I don't know if you're aware that legally they would have to take minutes of that meeting and everything said and provide Newcastle with the minutes of that meeting. So really, if you're going to provide someone with minutes and proof of what was said, why would you not let them in the meeting? Did they get Dutch courage by being able to gang up on Newcastle? But the other thing I'm curious about is if this went legally and they start looking at disclosure, did any of those 19 clubs speak to each other the day before and discuss what they wanted to say? Did they agree some points? Did those 19 clubs turn around and say, we need to get this stopped? And if they did, it's collusion. If we did, it's anti-competitive. So I think they're all in a very, very, very tricky position. And if you think of spores, that's what evidence is like. Once these people start, I mean, there was a WhatsApp group during our case between some of the clubs outside the Big Six, and in that WhatsApp arena, we were advised that the chairman of Brighton came forward and said words to the effect of, it'll be good to go after the ESL came out and the Big Six were exposed. The comment, and again, this is come from me third hand, was that the Brighton chairman said it'd be nice to go to a meeting tomorrow and not have 6 of them stand up, tell us what we've got to say, or threaten to walk out and throw the dummies out, because they tell you what to say, what to vote on, and what's going to happen. And that's how dictatorial it is. And that's wholly anti-competitive. It's more anti-competitive that 6 are talking to each other about how they're going to win a vote or how they're going to win what they want. I think if you said to me, I will ask a question. When was the last time 19 clubs were allowed to sit in a meeting and discuss a £305 million takeover and the implications it had for them? Because that's apparently what it was. Apparently, the meeting was they went to the meeting because they made representations to the Premier League that there was implications for them in the takeover. And that's incredible. That's bizarre, isn't it? Like, how could our takeover have implications for them other than the fact we're going to stuff them on a football pitch? You know what I mean? Like, you can't stop people growing. So
that is the implications, though. That is exactly the implications that they're talking about, is that they are genuinely scared that we are going to absolutely destroy them on the football pitch and destroy them in the league table. Now, you've got teams that are down there at the moment that see us as an easy place in the league because we've got Steve Bruce in charge. We're not performing well. Without this takeover, we'd be odds on to get relegated, and we would be going straight down. And for those teams in the bottom half of the table, it's easy for them because it's one less place for them to worry about effectively, or 2 less places because Norwich are even worse than us. But then the top half are worried because you've got Everton that have spent nearly over £500 million in the last 5 or 6 years and got nowhere. They've moved nowhere. You've got West Ham that have had one good season and want to try and build on that. You've got Leicester that have built themselves in the last 3 years and see themselves trying to push, although they've not started well. And they see their notches going down one with us overtaking them. Tottenham and Arsenal as well, they've dropped off massively. So we do affect that. This one small club in the northeast, we do affect everyone else in the country because of our power from both ends of the table. And you go back to the point, you asked the question, you said, you weren't sure why we weren't invited to that meeting. The reason why we weren't invited to that meeting, in my opinion, is because of pure jealousy. It's jealousy that we've got the takeover of all takeovers in the Premier League. Everyone thought Man City's was, but this one blows Man City's out the water by 10 times. And there is pure jealousy there, and they are scared. I've spoke to, being based in Leicester, I spoke to Leicester fans, a number of Leicester fans, and they are worried. They're worried about us now. Before, they used to laugh at Newcastle's results. They used to laugh when they talk to me on a Sunday with my football team that I manage. How was your result? And give a little giggle when they're picking up 3 points week in, week out. Now, I went there on Sunday, not one word spoken about the takeover, not one word spoken about Newcastle. It's because they know they're genuinely scared. They know it's not going to be straight away, but they know at some point we are going to quickly overtake them, and it'll be the other way around, and they'll be the ones that, or we'll be the ones that will be laughing at them whilst we're sitting higher up in the table than them. And that's exactly the reason why that they all feel like that, because they all want what we have. And we have it. They don't care that we've waited 14 years for it. They just hate the fact that it's us.
I don't know if I think it should pretty much proves how much we need an independent regulator away from it. As soon as this Tracy Crouch review gets done, it needs to happen ASAP. I don't know if anybody happened to see a Southerner who's actually become more of an adopted Geordie over recent years due to his connection to the Close House. Lee Westwood's tweet today in reply to a BBC article about the vote, and he simply put, surely it wouldn't be the governing body. Surely it should be the governing body to rule on this, not the other teams who are NUFC's direct competitors. That to me sums everything up in one small sentence.
Yeah,
pretty much. It should be an independent regulator that regulates, or if the Premier League had a backbone to stand on, they should just turn and say no.
Yeah. On Pete's just said earlier, he talked about, I think you've touched on the legalities, you've touched on what's happening, but when you talk to both legal people and people that commentate on press, the phrases that I've heard both of QCs and from press is, by excluding Newcastle from that meeting of 19 people was, I mean, Robert said tonight, in itself extraordinary, because, you know, when would you have a meeting? But more to the point, what was the meeting about? And that's when it gets really, really naughty, because if you were starting a case off, your QC could look at the judge and say, Judge, I just want to ask a question. When have 19 football clubs ever met to talk strategically about just one without them being present? And so there's some groundbreaking things happening here. And you know, people come on Twitter and say to me, "Oh, Keith, you know, I saw a cracker tonight. This bloke put on Twitter. He put this little tweet, and it was like this bloke saying, you know, it was like just when I thought I was out, you know, and this bloke was getting his gloves on and going back in, and you get all these rocky pitches. But our club have got phenomenal money. You know, they don't. I don't need to write a letter. I know we have the banter about it, but you certainly would enjoy. You know, can you imagine if you said you've got a job here, and this is to protect the football club on competition grounds. You know, because you need to smell and feel what's competitive and isn't, and you need to know where to bite. So if that was to happen, it would be great fun doing a job for the football club, just watching incidents where we were being dealt with in an anti-competitive manner. But by God, you'd be busy, like you'd be doing some Saturdays and Sundays because there's going to be a lot of anti-competitive behaviour. But personally, I think there'll just be one action comes along, and I think when it does, I think I think the club will be forced to go down the route. I think the new owners are wise at the moment in trying to build up a rapport with the Premier League, because you know that it makes sense why they would, so that they can. But it's not going to last long. Where 2 days after they were formed, there's been a meeting without them, and then after that, there's a meeting where they've been a vote 18-2 because there's some amazing points they put in that vote. They seem to be trying to say that if, let's suppose, Newcastle United Stadium is 5 times bigger than any other stadium, let's suppose it was massively prestigious, then surely, if that's the case, why would it be wrong for Newcastle to be able to sell that name for more than the Emirates? But what they seem to be suggesting is the other clubs want a cap put on it. If the name Emirates Stadium is 40 million, then Newcastle's has got to be the same. Well, that's not the case. And if Newcastle have more bricks than Man City and they want to build 30,000 extra seats, does that make it anti-competitive for Newcastle to have more stadia? So really, that is the whole part of competition, that the football club should be allowed to get, you know, as much as they want for the name, as much as they want for the stadium name, as much as they want for the shirt sponsorship. But it seems that you know, the Burnleys and the West Hams and the Evertons are going to try and put a vote through. And it seems as though it's been linked towards running for the next 5 years based on the revenues you've had previously. That can't be right. Now, I mean, if you get investment off a country, why should you be limited to 5 years worth of spending as it was in the past? It is hugely anti-competitive, and I'm sure the club will invest their money and their efforts to make sure they're not dealt with in an anti-competitive manner. I think the first time the club take an action against part of this, whether it's clubs, whether it's a Big Six, or whether it's the Premier League, or whether it's all of them. I think that masses of evidence, some of which we've put together, will be added to that to show that there is anti-competitive behaviour going on. I think you only win once. If you win anti-competitive behaviour, you're tagged. To say, in most things in law, if you get tagged with something, it stays with you.
Off topic, lads, there was this good comment there, and you'd be glad I didn't do this, Richie. There was a good comment from Dean. Just a thought, a lookalikey. We don't do lookalikes in this show. It's on Steve's show, but it said Richie looks like Keith and Steve Wright's love child. So I thought maybe we should look.
There's me boy. Sit down, like.
Well, here's a young Richie.
The bit I'm struggling with is the bit where I'm supposed to have made a child with Steve Wright. You know what I mean?
Steve Kennedy, no problem, but Steve Wright,
respect for that. I don't want babies with them, and if they do, I don't want them to look like Richie.
Here's young Richie, but it doesn't really look like him to me. Maybe this helps. Yeah, perfect.
Oh, he's been ripped.
Looks like Richie.
Brilliant. Tell you what, it's been some journey, hasn't it? It's been
mate.
Been a
roller coaster as always.
You think of all the people you've met, and it's nuts. Like, you know, people come up here at the ground and go, "I'm so and so," and they tell you the Twitter name, you know. So, like, if you come down, you say, "I'm Daz Shocks," and you think, "Oh, bloody hell!" And then you think of all the dialogue you've had. You know what I mean? and you think most people's Twitter handles are nuts to start with. When people come up, like normal people come up with these crazy names, but it was amazing. Like, it was amazing. But all we've got to do now is we've got to ignore all the crap that's going around, and we've got to let the owners manage, because these are, you know, outstanding business people who have gained this wealth by being good at what they do, and they'll be looking at everything. You know what I mean? They'll be looking at, everyone wants to pick the new manager. Everyone wants to tell them, you know, what day Bruce gets sacked. They want to. Might have heard it was today, by the way. So we just got to say, you know, try and make as few mistakes as possible. And if you do make mistakes, try not to make them twice. Because, you know, everybody makes mistakes, but make the same one twice is not clever. And I've got every faith that they're going to deliver something special. You know what I mean? And I heard a statement about a few weeks ago, and then it came back to us this week, and he turned around and said, somebody said they'd been talking at a high level, Saudis and PIF were involved, and basically he just said that there was an instruction given from an important part of that organisation, said, "I don't want to see another Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain or Real Madrid top in Saudi Arabia in 2 years' time." And I said, wow. And then I remember Al Walid said to us, he said, "You look at Man City, it's 28 billion and 3 million population." And I've been there. I've been Abu Dhabi. It's a lovely place. I've been there. It's a cracking place to go for holiday. And then you look at, put it in perspective, Al Walid said, when you go to Saudi Arabia, it's not 3 million people, it's 30 million people, 10 times more. And the wealth fund isn't 28 billion. They said it's nearer 400. And you just think, you know, these are mind-boggling numbers, this. Yeah. 30 million new black and whites. And apparently the trend over there is to support their own, you know, to support what they're doing. So they reckon the country will get behind us. So what a great achievement. And you've seen all this rubbish go around about people trying to get the takeover. You've seen the rubbish going on about me, and people make lies up about you, but it's very difficult. You know, it's very difficult. You know, if I say, you know, if I said Daz Shocks is always hanging around toilets in Dublin, and you know, I've seen him loads of times.
You got me.
He's always hanging around. He's always around the male toilets with a phone. Then that's a terrible thing to say about anybody, but it's hard to disprove. How are you going to? What are you going to do? Stand around the toilet to see if he turns up? It's very hard. And when people turn around and say, "But isn't it?" And if people turn around and say Keith Patterson's took money off people, which I never have, then it's hard to say what do you say to that? What do you say to that? And they turn around and say, Steve Hastie's done this and Steve Race done that, and Daz, you're all people that have got a name now in some way, shape, or form. You've got a name in the Newcastle arena, and next time they turn around and say Pete's done X, Y, Z, how does Pete prove he hasn't done anything at all? Because Pete wouldn't do that, and sometimes, Pete, when you defend it, you sound guilty.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when people are trying to say I didn't do that, so really, that's what it's been. It's been 14 months of horse shit. It's been 14 months of apparently I've ripped everybody off. I've stolen the money. I haven't had a bean. I haven't had a penny. I haven't had a penny in. I haven't had a penny back. I haven't had a penny in wages. I haven't had a penny. I've had nobody's money at all. But what do you do? Do you put that out? Do you put a tweet out saying I did this all off my own funds? You don't. You just sit there and you let the horse shit bounce off you. You just block people. That's all you can do.
Keith, you made a good point there, and you used the word defending yourself, and that's pretty much what you've had to do throughout this whole period, certainly on social media. And I remember quite early on having a conversation with Steve, and I said, obviously Keith he's retaliating. Maybe we should have the conversation with him and tell him just to ignore it. But Steve was very much of the mindset. He was like, look, Keith's his own man. He'll do what he feels best. And I was genuinely worried for you. And there's a few others in the Matters chat that were worried for you as well, because obviously we didn't want you to get heaped on with the pylons and all the rest of it and all the rubbish that eventually did come. But that's all you were really doing throughout, is defending yourself when people were calling you out and saying things and questioning your motives or questioning why you were doing this. It was a case of, you were just defending yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because where I'm from, everyone worries about the missus. They all worry about Karen, not me. They all say, "Poor lass, she wakes up next to him." But it's. I think people. My family worried about us. My family, I think they thought I lost the plot, because think why would you spend your money and take you out of earning money and take you out of jobs, and sacrifice two businesses, which you sort of let go a little bit, and like since I've gone back to it and picked them up, the growth is massive. The growth since I've started doing what I do again is huge. Like. I've looked at my business and think, yeah, you forget how good they are and what you've done with them. So I have a brother that suffered cancer, in the middle of all this, and when your older brother gets cancer, I've never handled that before. I never known what it meant, and he had prostate cancer, and he went for the op, and it was stage. He thought at the first it was stage 1, which is great, and then they said there's some stage 2. But when they did the operation, it was stage 3, and they said stage 4, you're knackered, and you look at it and you just realise that it's a journey. We're all just passing through, and he's as black and white as me. You know what I mean? And I looked at him when he was bad, and he must have lost 4 stone, and I just thought, am I going to be at Wembley and see you win something? You know what I mean? And then when you get that kind of operation, your waterworks affected, and I stayed with him through the lockdown. I stayed with him and with him and his family, and we just sit there and he just watch podcasts. He'd watch you lot, So I'd say these lots are good laugh. Put these on, you know what I mean? And then he would tune in, and he used to always say that Steve Hastie. He always felt, he said, I could sit and listen to Steve Hastie all night. And then I had a birthday party in August, and Steve Hastie come down, you know what I mean? And Steve With come down, and Peter Baker, Daft Joe from Toon Tipster, they're all there, but they were all like in the room, and we just had one of them old fashioned parties, like where we had a comedian on, a comedian from Doncaster, you know what I mean? And we just stood there, and it's Peter Baker saying, my brother's a lovely bloke. And you look around and you think, none of us know where we're going. You know, you don't know what we're going. None of yous. They say 1 in 2 people gets cancer, and you don't know when you think to yourself, so there's 5 of us here, 2.5 of us going to get it. You know what I mean? And you think, how will you cope with it? And some of the things I thought of through all that period was I just wanted to take my brother to watch Newcastle win something, because he took me in 1969, and I thought he took his first game was Crystal Palace at home, and I remember sitting on the barrier in the Leazes end, and like I sat there and I said, "Where's the bloke who tells you who's got the ball?" Because I thought the commentator was live. I thought, because I'd watched on the telly, I thought you'd actually say, "Now it's McDonald," you know, and so on. And he took us to Wembley in '74, and you go to all these games. You know what I mean? We went to Milan and we went to Juventus, and you like look and think we never won out. You know what I mean? And he's one of these people that he looks at you approvingly, but he doesn't necessarily say it. And you just look and you get the impression that he's proud of what I've done. And I've got in a few times and caught him with one of the podcasts on the telly. You know, and I think, you're watching
podcast porn.
You're watching your little brother. And his missus says, "Oh, he's up at 1 o'clock in the morning." So when he has a pub, and he says when the pub shuts, he's watching the thing at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he has a pub, and he's I don't know, you just look at it all and I just think to yourself, if I've made him proud, that's enough. Do you know what I mean? And if we get a takeover and I've played a role, then I know he's proud of that. And then people say, "Oh, your brother was telling us how proud he is." And I was in the pub on Sunday. I got back from the match and I went to the pub to see my girlfriend. And I got in there and I heard this bloke at the bottom say, Sandra, that's my brother's wife, was saying Keith's been involved in that. Keith helped that takeover. And you just think to yourself, they're all proud. But like, wouldn't it be great if you think of all you 5 and think of you 4? Sorry, I keep looking at 5. I keep forgetting I'm one of them. It's an age thing with the eyes. But you just think to yourself, which 4 people do you 4 most want to stand at Wembley with and see us win something? And I'm going to say something before they die. Or which young band do you want to take? Which band who's so young, you think, God, if you could win something when you're 6-year-old, what kind of life are you going to have? And I picked more kids up. You know, there's more kids got brought to me on Sunday, and the people said, there's one guy, Raymondo, sent a text. He says, my granddaughter got home, and she said to me, family, I met the man who helped do that. And I just thought, oh, don't say that to me. And he sent it on a text from the grandbairn, and you just think to yourself, God, how humbling is that? Like, you know, that you played a part. But you know, Raymondo, lovely fella. You know, he says he's proud to call us a friend. Well, I am as well. But that's what I want to get out for. I want to get in the background again, and I don't know, be the bloke in the back of the pub, and I just want to be the one with the biggest smile. You know, I don't want to, if the trolls are out there and they've been out this week and they've been out, you know, they just never let. But they're funded. You know what I mean? I found out that it's not by chance, they're funded, so they're going to be there forever. And the people like Mitch and Steve Hasty will stand there week in, week out, plying their trade of what they do. They talk about football because they love it to bits, and I admire that. And if you give Neil Mitchell some crap, it just bounces off him. It's like Johnson Weathersealed. Neil Mitchell just swears at them. He's got Tourette's. He just tells them where to go. Steve Hasty's had a tough year, you know what I mean? And when I watch them two, I think I couldn't have took the rubbish that Steve Hasty's had of late. I couldn't have took it. So that's why I think, because of my temperament and because I wear my heart on my sleeve, I just think to myself, it's best I get out now. I think I've done my bit. Genuinely, I don't think I'm much use to anybody. I think it's time to put my family forward. It's time to put my girlfriend forward, and go and enjoy myself.
Keith, I think maybe the lads have another question, but if the lads don't, I think maybe we should get on to the topic of Bruce, because I know a lot of people in the
I was going to say, look, let's not mess around anymore. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, I want to know 2 things, or we want to know 2 things, Keith. When is Bruce leaving our club, and who do you think is going to be the next manager of Newcastle United in the new era?
Right. I want to answer the question you just give us. If someone said, who would you like it to be, or who it's because everybody's got dreams, and that's what a football fan is. When you pay your money, and when I say when you pay your money, when you get your Sky subscription, or when you get your Fire Stick, or whatever you get, a lot of it is down to you pays your money and you have your vote, and you're allowed to have an opinion. And so when do I think Bruce will go? If it had been during the lockdown takeover and people asked his opinions, I only said what I knew. So every time I was asked the question, Pete, I said what I knew, and I had the benefit of being talking to legal people, and I had the benefit of talking to the club. You know what I mean? And I had benefit of working with people that were close to buyers. So I had the full set all the time, so I could talk with a bit of fact. Now, I purposely, and since the takeover, I've stayed away. I've spoke to the sellers more in the last week than anybody else. So I've spoke to the people who sold the club more, in contact and being in contact with them, because I'm grateful that they believed us. So I'm a bit out of it now on purpose. I'm a bit like not wanting to be in the know anymore. I'm trying to prove that it's not about me. So I've made a point of not doing it. And you stringing us into somewhere, and all I can say to you is, I think you'll go this week, and I think it'll be Eddie Howe.
Okay.
That's you happy, Pete?
Yeah, Pete's happy.
Well, I tweeted out today a video from 2019. It was the season that we went into lockdown, and it showed a 2.5 minute video of Eddie Howe and how he constructed his pre-season training session with Bournemouth at the time, and the way he engaged with his players, the connection that he had, the direction and what he wanted from his players, he demanded on the pitch, and the way he communicated that, I thought was excellent. Was of a manager of the modern era that I would expect them to do. I'm not saying he's an elite manager, he's not, but I look at some of the pictures and the videos, and I see the way in which Bruce is talked about by journalists that get to watch him on the training ground. He is nothing like that, right? And it's very, very clear in our performances that we don't perform through what's been done in training, or that anything's even been done at training. And someone asked the question to me today, based on that tweet that I put out, well, Graham Jones can do the same thing. And I'm saying, well, yeah, he's a fantastic coach. He proved that with his last season in England. However, what you want as a player, what I would want as a player, if I was a professional footballer, I would want my manager to take that responsibility, to direct me, to tell me how you want me to play, organize the team, the defense, the midfield, the forward line, how you want me to play. What is your vision as the manager? Not just expect the coach to do it and go sit in your room or go and stand on the sides and have no input in terms of how training's done. He was right in the thick of it. And that's what we need right now. You know, we would obviously want an elite manager. We've talked about the Contes, we've talked about the Mourinhos, the Pochettinos, all the rest of it before. That's the kind of manager that we would want going forward in our vision. But right now, we need someone that's going to guide these players through the remaining 29 games. And that's why I've always had my mind set on Eddie Howe. And that's the reason being, he's a manager that's free at the moment. He's free and ready to manage a team that he sees a vision for. And I think he can get a tune out of these current players before the transfer window and get them playing right now. So, I did kind of crack a smile when you said that, because I've had that vision for Eddie Howe, even in the Mike Ashley era, and I still see it now for this season.
Yeah. I think to add to what you've said, on the downside, there's good football people have said he took a good ball on the side down. On the downside, people said he lost the dressing room, and that Fraser wasn't enamoured with him. But I haven't been enamoured with him either. But Wilson, they said, wasn't the biggest fan. But there's been a lot of rumours there.
Yeah.
So on the positive side, I think there used to be a shop in Forry Hill called Joan House. I think I'd rather have Joan House running the club than Steve Bruce. So you know, like honestly, I'd rather Donau or Donau's wife than anybody put Steve Bruce, because I just don't think, when I looked at that team at the weekend, I just didn't think he set it up to win. And my best pal Dominic he said he was furious, and I said, why? He's a solicitor. He said, Keith, he says, he set the team up to lose. He says, I'm honestly, nobody can say that team was set up to win. And you know, when you hear that, when you talk about Eddie Howe, you think yourself, there's some good things. I mean, I think there's a connection with Graham Jones. I think Graham Jones has a bond connection, and I think Graham Jones will come alive. Being said, I think what Eddie Howe would be doing would be confident in, go and do that, Graham, and let Jones stand on the touchline and encourage, shout, direct, dictate. Because when you're a manager, you're there to make your coaches coach. And what I've seen is, you know, Bruce sort of stifle him a little bit. But I don't know. I'm quite a simple, straightforward bloke. I think he's a Man United supporter, and anybody that gets hold of a Sunderland scarf, puts it around the neck, and says, "Why do I want to manage Newcastle when I've got what I want here?" I don't forget that. It's a bit like, you know, would you forget your best mate sleep with your missus? No, I don't think you would. I think it would stick with you. You know what I mean? And you know, when somebody stands there in a Sunderland shirt and says, "I don't need to manage Newcastle," then I think, well, don't. And you know, so people I talk to see he's a nice fella. People, you know, the government see he's a nice bloke. So I'm not denying he's not a nice bloke, but I know a lot of nice blokes that couldn't manage Newcastle. I know a lot of nice blokes I wouldn't give the Newcastle job to, and I'm not looking for a nice bloke. I'd rather we had a swine who was a nightmare. You know, when you hear about great managers, and you hear about Cloughy, what he did with some of the players, you hear about Alex Ferguson, you know, how he rattled Beckham and all the rest of it, and you hear about, you know, they've got a streak, and I've seen so many games in the last 12 months where there's been penalties, for example, and Jones is in the middle with a ring and he's talking them, and I've seen him and Bruce is outside. He's like outside the ring and he's got his back to them, and I'm just thinking, well, please somebody tell me what's going through his head while he's doing that. But you know, there's many a time I'd like to give the team talk, because in the same way that Keegan, could you imagine getting a team talk of Bobby Robson, then Kevin Keegan, then Steve Bruce? Do you know what I mean? It's seriously, it's like steak scampi chucked out beans off the floor. You know what I mean? Like there's no drive there. And really, when a manager talks, he wants to get all the fans fired up. And you know, say what you want. When we saw that, I come at the pub after the Blackburn game and saw that, I just love it. All the Newcastle players were behind Keegan that night, and so was all the fans. Because we said, you've still got to go to Middlesbrough and get a result. And we were hanging on to straws. But that was Keegan with his heart on his sleeve. And that's why, you know, Keegan will always be my hero. But when you talk to people like Peter Beardsley, he's his hero. When you talk to Peter Beardsley, he talks about Kevin Keegan being his hero. And how many Newcastle fans have got Kevin Keegan as hero? But yet, that thing's missing from the club at the minute. You know, the Kevin Keegan, I don't know, drive, passion, heart on the sleeve. And when we played in them Keegan days, and we played against teams, and the ball got through, and Venison took some off at about neck height, you just thought, get up there, son. Because it was only Venison could lift people like that. Then Bracewell could get rattled into somebody. Then the ball go to Beardsley, he'd beat three players, and they'd slip it out, and and you just thought, you know, you just want to shout charge. You know what I mean? You just thought, you know, like, we're going to batter these. And it's gone from the club. But what I'm going to say to you is and I never apologise. I always give credit where it's due. Mike Ashley said a while ago, I can't compete. I mean, like I'm a businessman, and I've, you know, earned a living in business. And if I say I can't afford that, I'm sorry, I can't afford that. It's too much for me. That's all you can say. And when a man who's a multi-billionaire with supposedly 2,500 million. 2,500 million people. They say 2.5 billion is what's pennies, but 2,500 million. When you say it like that, it sounds, and he tells you I can't compete. I think he's right. I think he's right, because you can't compete with somebody who's worth 28 billion. You know, Newcastle couldn't compete with Chelsea. And there's one thing certain: if the kind of scrutiny that's been looked at Newcastle was applied when Chelsea were here, they would never have that on it.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that how did that get passed? Because it's and now, you know, everybody's going to tell you lot that you want to get a grip of yourself. You've sold your heart, your soul, and seriously, honestly, all those people, the only thing you can do with them is block them, chop them, because they are people that are paid to do that. There's a network of people doing that. And if next time you see some garbage online, go to the account and ask, see, and I bet it's open in August, September, October 21. I bet it's got about 7 followers. It'll have some dodgy name, and it's there to try and get you lot to bite it. To try, when the conversation gets answered, they get louder. And I just say, when you see that, people, just wave your hand, chop it off, and that's where I am. But with me now, I just think myself, there's a better life for me than doing this, and I don't think I'm any use to the club. I don't think I'm any use to the fans in terms of what I did. I was just surrounded an opportune time, you know, when it came in, you know, and the truth will come out one day. When I went to the club, they were humble, and the first discussion with Justin Barnes was a difficult one. Gordon Stein will testify to that. He was quite angry with our case that Robert had played it, and the way we'd mentioned that the club hadn't been run well. But that was Robert saying that rather than me. And I explained that to him, and then he listened, and he gave us time. And when he took our case on, them people, them QCs, weren't competition QCs. That's why I get offended a little bit when these Mickey Mouse lawyers come online and they start telling you about, one of them in particular always says Cat had nothing to do with the takeover, and Cat won't have anything to do with the takeover. Oh yeah, what do you specialise in? So probably selling properties, you know, whatever. You know, when you look at his speciality, he has zero. He says, I've got competition experience. I said, tell us the name of the case, tell us who the client was, tell us what the result was. And he couldn't answer that. And I said, show me where you've done some competition case. So really, please don't give us advice about it. And now that the club took it on, and when I looked at like Nick DeMarco and Shahid Fatima, they weren't competition people. That's not what they do. And people are saying, oh, if these kick off again, Nick will go in. It won't. It will be your Robert O'Donoghue, your Danny Jowls. It'll be the competition experts that will do it. And the club, I would assure the PIF, will have their own competition specialist. I hope it's Robert O'Donoghue, because, you know, he's the best. But that said, the club were humble enough to listen and to say, you know, why will this work for us? And when you look at it now, you look at this case and you think, God, we've done it. You know, like, so my timing, I think I just coming along at the time, and I think I was lucky that I'd spent years in competition cases, and the club's legal team were more dispute resolution and were more Middle East experts, and they were there to win an arbitration. You know, so I think I was lucky that I went in. If I'd gone in there and they'd say, look, we know everything there is about competition law, get yourself on your way, I would have served no purpose. But I went to them at a time when they didn't, and I think I was lucky that I was able to make a difference. But you know, I know what difference it was, and I know how the case was picked up, and I know what won the takeover. And the people who sold the club said we smashed them to pieces legally. They couldn't answer the case. They could never win a Cat case. My only fear was a quick sale to somebody else. That was always a fear.
Yeah.
Or the PIF walked away. That was the big fear. And even when they had the Premier League beat, it still wasn't guaranteed that they get PIF back at the table. There was still a fight to be done at the end to get PIF back at the table and to get the deal done. And when they were to announce it from the Premier League passing it, say on the Tuesday, because I was saying, well, when's it getting announced? And on the Wednesday, they said it should be tomorrow. And we waited all the way through that day. The people I spoke to said they were waiting for, it was PIF they were waiting for. But Sky were announcing that they were waiting for the Premier League. That wasn't true. That wasn't the case. and I believe the people who told me that they were closely connected, and you know, now we've got PIF, and now we've got that kind of belief. Their vision for 2030 is phenomenal. I mean, they want to be less reliant on oil, and part of that is to promote their business worldwide. So it's great fun, because I have a little mate who I talk to every few days. He's a Macam. I know there's no such thing, but he is quite a nice Macam. And I say to him, he says, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy with all your. And I just said, listen, every time you go on, I said, have you been on Facebook today? He says, 3 times. And I says, have you been out in the car? I says, I says, using petrol. I says, you know, when you're on Facebook, you use petrol. I says, you'll contribute to our new striker.
You love that.
You keep going on Facebook, lad. You keep going, and they sit there and I say, they say, oh, I'm going out Friday. Get an Uber. And they say, so what I do is I got a list printed off of what PIF have invested in. And literally, it's like playing hopscotch with no feet. He can't stand anywhere. Everything he touches, that's our money. And I just keep going like that. Just do the scratching. Get that money here.
He was here to see you coming. You're ready for him.
Everything he did that day involved some of the PIF owns. So for me, it's going to be exciting. But the other thing I'll say to you, and I don't mind saying it, you know what I mean? You kind of chuck stuff across the screen, but it'll actually rub off on Sunderland, because they're northeast based, they're well supported. You can't get away from the fact that they are a good championship club, and if they invest well, then they get the Premier League. But if they got the Premier League, they probably got more right to be there than the clubs like Norwich and Burnley and things like that. And if they do, they've got more chance with the investment that's going on in the northeast. I mean, they still have to use. They still have got to come in, get the train to Newcastle to go to Sunderland from London, and they still have to go to our airport and things like that. And they'll still serve hot dogs in a burger bun, but they will benefit. The Sunderland is a town, is a city now. So I think they'll still actually gain from the takeover, though they won't admit.
And we're going to need a few feeder clubs as well. So Sunderland, you never know. Here we go under 23s. I think we should probably think about wrapping up, lads. It is a school night after all. I'm sure people are.
How long have we done?
We've done an hour and 52.
2 hours.
Yeah. But I know, Keith. I think we want to say thanks a million for coming on. With us Unloaded, of coming back for the second time. We are very sad to hear that you're off. You're coming off podcasts, but you never know. You might change your mind and come back on one, either on the Fab Four, or drop along to us Unloaded. We'd love to have you back at any stage. Don't be a stranger. And I know Chris has met you and Pete has met you. I'll be coming over to Newcastle at some stage. I want to meet you. I want to meet everybody. But thanks a million for coming on. Anthony, last things you want to say, lads, before we wrap up?
I just think I'd like to say 2 things. Keith, I think I know Liam's been, supposedly going to be writing this book in the near future about all his experiences since the lockdown stuff. I think he also needs to do a Keith Patterson book as well. And I think any proceeds should go to the food bank or something like that, because I think that would be a great book, because I've been engrossed listening to it tonight from the start to the finish, from about how you got involved in it, the process, what you've meant to the takeover, what you've meant to the fans and stuff like that. So I think that would be a fantastic book for you and Liam to work on, and possibly get any proceedings go to the food bank, and then it's going to come back round full swing and benefit the local area again. And secondly, what actually happened was, I was reading through the comments that were coming through, and someone actually hit home about they're gutted about not going to hear you laugh anymore on the Fab Four. And if Steve's watching, I apologise, but and it's not going to be a segment we're taking over or anything like that. But I actually sent a couple of pictures to Steve for the two look-alike, and it's right, we are going to miss Keith's laugh. So because that comment was put on, I've got Daz to upload the 2 pictures, just so we can hear Keith's laugh again for a couple more times. So I'm not going to have to.
I might not be able to laugh at it.
Oh,
It's only Richie.
You better be good.
No pressure.
You'll laugh,
Okay.
Keith. You'll laugh. I know what you like. I know what your sense of humour's like. So here's picture one.
I hope it's Steve Hasty.
Is it there, Daz?
Yeah.
Who's
Who is
that?
it?
It's King Richard III.
Right.
So that's Steve Hasty in the 1500s.
Very good.
Who's that?
That's Lord Farquhar from Shrek.
And who's that supposed to be like?
Steve Hasty.
Oh, well, lad. He's got grey hair, man. This bloke's got red black hair.
Well, he has, but he was young once, you know, Keith.
Oh, you picked him.
That's the Leicester centre back.
Yeah, so I heard
Yes,
you.
I heard you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great shout. Get it on.
I
Get
tell
it
you what,
on.
But
you can't put me hasty pictures up.
Do you know what, Keith?
That's why we did it, Keith.
Someone asked this week, I'd fall out with him. He said, have you fallen out with him? I says, you're joking. I said, that'll never ever happen. You know, like never ever. I was mates with them 30 years ago, and I'll always be mates with them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't fall out with people, but it's like people trying to make out that like I've fallen out with NUFC matters. That won't happen. You know what I mean? And I know people leave NUFC matters to go off and do the other stuff. I'm not going to do anything. You know what I mean? Like I respect them three too much to do that. You know what I mean? Johnny Allen, like what he's done. You know, like he's been like COVID nearly killed that lad. And he's just worked his knackers off all the way through this. And I just have too much respect for that team. You know, Joe comes on and, you know, like all the people that's been on there, young Holly and, you know, I just, it's like they've given me a lot and they haven't asked us for anything back. So I can't go and stitch them up. It's not what I do. But it's amazing. I've been gone 3 days. It's amazing how many calls. People come to us on Sunday going, you get stitched up, and I'm thinking, shut up, man. You know what I mean? And I got sick of it. And people asking us if I fallen out with Liam Kennedy. Like, we big pals, you know what I mean? Like he would never ever say anything about me and vice versa. So, but it seems that in this network that it'll be good if apparently I got thrown off on Friday, you know, like you know, Friday night. They let me say I was leaving because it made us look better. I don't really like well, you know, but I hadn't got a clue I was going to do that. And the thing is, I just remembered as I was thinking, it's time to get off. I was thinking, you lot thinking, God, I've promised to do another. So I'll have to explain that she was asked this before I went on that show. So I had to announce that I'd agreed to do this. And then as the day's gone on today, I thought, what will we talk about? You know what I mean? I thought, I've got nothing to talk about. I mean, if you lads want to talk, just before we do, I just wanted to say thank you to a few people.
Sure.
Did you want to go first or can I go first?
No, you can go first.
I just think, I mean, like Pete, I want to thank Gordon, who stood by us at the start and helped us do this. And when he left, he went with my blessing because he had the sense to go back to work, and I wish I did. Peter, for coming to the house and asked us to do one letter, I'll never ever forgive you. Gary, who was the judge, who doesn't want to be named, and then when Peter started, he had a lad called Dan and Marshy who helped us out in the early days. The NUFC Matters team, Steve Wraith, I can't thank you enough because you give me a platform to put the voice over to do it. And on many occasions, you know, like when he was stood in front of Sky TV, I'll never be able to thank you enough, Steve, for turning around and telling Sky about me one letter and what I've done. Because, you know, you're up there when you could have spoke about you, but you spoke about me. I'll always be indebted to you for that. Steve Hasty and Mitch, you've been like brothers, and the three of you, I just always, you know, look up to as the people who helped us do this. Liam Kennedy, one of the most honest people I've ever met in my life, and someone I'm proud to call a close friend. Thanks, mate. You've been brilliant. I want to thank Justin Barnes and Mike Ashley because Mike Ashley's money employed Justin Barnes to believe in me, and if he hadn't backed us, I wouldn't even be heard of. I want to thank the buyers. PIF, PCP and the Rubens, because in them I think we've got the best owners on the planet, and I haven't made any attempt to speak to them or to contact them or anything, and don't have any intentions to, you know what I mean? I'm done, but I just want to thank them for having the faith in buying our club. And I just wish them all well. If I ever could help the club, I always would, but I don't see I'm any use to anybody. I would like to thank my partner, Karen, for putting up with us. We split up during this, and it got, when you get death threats, you get people come to your house in a stolen car, and you're getting told you're getting sprayed with acid when you go out, and you're on edge of it, and you get angry. You know what I mean? And it was my doing that I just thought she could be in a safer place. Why would you want your person you love to be in your house when you get death threats, all caused by yourself? But back together now as solid as ever, and I'm just pleased that she had the faith and saw enough in me, and I'm pleased that she wants more punishment because she's a diamond. I want to thank my family who think I'm nuts. Got a brother and a sister. I love them both dearly, and they're both really proud of us. And they've been brilliant. I want to thank all my friends. I want to thank Robert O'Donoghue, because you're a legend, and you're the best legal person on the planet. I want to thank my best friend Dominic Casti. He's the lawyer who's taught us every day, and I once spent 7 figures with him in a year on legal fees, on competition law. So he's guided us through this. And every time I thought I was doing something or saying something or trying to get evidence, he would say, try this, try that. What about this? What about that? And when I got some, I said, what do you think of this? And he'd just give us a free opinion as a best friend. Thanks to the fans. They've been absolutely brilliant. The fans of our football club, the best on the planet. And, I just want to be one of you again. So I hope you accept us back, and let us stand in the corner of the room and let us sing with you, and let us travel the world with you, watching our team win. Lastly, I want to thank all the Uncle Knobheads who were trolls. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you made Keith Patterson find extra energy and extra strength, and you thought you could beat us, and I knew I could always beat you, and I knew you never had the beating of me. I knew all along you were low lifes to do nothing. I knew I'd been a high achiever, and I knew sort of my worst effort was better than your best. I knew you weren't worthy of someone like me, and I knew I would always win in the end. And you told you, in fact, you the people that got my fame out of this. You're the people that put me on a pedestal, because what you did was you slagged us off and told us I wouldn't do it, and I told you I would, and I beat you. I beat every one of you. So crawl back on your little rocks, get back in your pond, and just remember you got your arse smacked off Keith Patterson. Good night.
What a finish. Love it. Well said, Keith.
Class.
Well said. How do you follow that?
I know you can.
One last thing I'm going to say is, as a thank you to Keith, is from my own personal point of view. I'm a Newcastle fan. I have been for 30 years. I live in the west of Ireland. But what you've done has a knock-on effect. Just give one example. When my son is 4 years old, when he grows up, the chances of him being a Newcastle fan now have increased enormously. And I don't. Hopefully, the day won't come that he'll come home wearing a Man United jersey. That was always my biggest fear. So now he's got a team that or he will have a team that can actually do something and be at the top tier of football, of English football and European football. It's thanks to you. That is, and I'm only one example. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of more that I'm sure are in the same situation. So thank you, Keith.
That means so much, and I'm just totally humbled that you can relate your kids' happiness to anything I did. Like this is just a journey, isn't it? My dad died 51-year-old when I was 18-year-old, and he was the best man I ever met in my life. He was an unbelievable guy. He got a Christmas card of the royal family in 1971 for raising £158,000 for charity in 1971. And he was in a team of 2 people, him and Prince Philip. And he was just an ordinary man he was from a mine area of Ashington in Northumberland. And, at 18-year-old, you lose him, and I just wish he was here. God, if he could see you now, he'd say, crying, I'll kill you. Sorry, Dad. but just to do that, and for me to sit and see a young lad like you turn around and say that I can make a difference to your little bairn's life, it's so humbling. I think, but I think I was lucky. I think there was a gap in the club. I think there's a gap legally that the fans filled. You know what I mean? And it was fans plural because all I did, I think I just instigated everybody to get behind it and fight it. But it's amazing, and that's what's humbled us at the weekend, where it was people were passing as kids and saying, "You changing their lives." And I said to all the kids the same. I said, "You're in for a great time." You know, if you think about it, if you think of the dog shit we've watched for 30, 40 years, you know, we've had a little spell in between that one. It was great when you were always people's second best team, second favourite team. We'll never get back to that. Well, you know, you always say never look back. We'll never get back to that because Keegan, you know, the entertainers, Ginola, there was just something about it. You know what I mean? Like, and when we do it next time, we'll abort it. And I always remember in that time when we went to Blackburn, and Blackburn battered us. You know, that Shearer and Sutton and all them, and they were just a great side. And Jack Walker put that team together. And I remember being a put in Blackburn, and we were just singing. You know, like they were going loads and loads of money, and we were just insulting them because they had loads of money, and that's what we're going to get now. We're just going to get abused for being too wealthy. But like, really, when I look at the last 40 years watching Newcastle, you know what I mean? And I think, like, you know, I stood and cried like a baby at this 1974 World Cup Cup final, and the only time I was happy was when Brendan Foster run down the pitch, and towards the Liverpool end, he did a 10,000 metre thing, and when he run down one end, they were singing Foster's a Geordie, Foster. The whole crowd, Foster's Geordie. As he went round the back bend and come up to the side, they chanted, "Come on, Brendan, come on, Brendan," and he just danced all over them. That's the only thing we won. That's the only time I've seen him win anything at Wembley. You know, I've been to Wembley and the score at Wembley since I've been going is 17-2 to them. 17 goals to 2 in the Wembley appearance I've been to. And I just think myself, these kids are they're gonna not know they're being born. They're gonna go on holiday and everybody's gonna have a Newcastle shirt and a Newcastle towel on the sunbeds. You know what I mean? It's just the only two words I can give it, it's our time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Keith, just to follow on from that, mate, dead quick. So obviously it was an absolute privilege to meet you. I've met you twice now, obviously in London and then at the weekend. Absolute pleasure. I hope to meet you many more times at Newcastle games. So, you know, that's something, you know, I'm looking forward to. It was particularly interesting when you said, you know, about holding the kids up and stuff outside the stadium, because funnily enough, that was one of the first things I saw when I got to the stadium on Sunday. And I must admit, like, it even got a lump in my throat watching you do that, because I thought this is the part of something special. And it is, you know, people coming over to you and congratulating you and, you know, thanking you for all the effort that you've put in. And we could stay on for another 4 hours doing that, Keith, because we're all in debt to you. People in the chat, people on this, you know, on this podcast, we're all in debt to you. The NUFC Matters crew, other podcasts, everybody. So to put it into words is obviously quite difficult. So I'm not even going to try and do it. I just want to say a big, massive thank you to you. And I hope you realise how much it means to us and to everybody else. The only thing I will say, Keith, that I disagree with on what you said, this isn't lucky, mate. There's no luck involved in this at all. I know you said that you were lucky. You weren't lucky. You all the effort that you put in and everything that you did, and the reason that we are where we are is in major part because of you. And that's not luck. That's something that you did yourself, and that's something that we're all in debt to you for.
Yeah, just to echo what Keith. That's probably what Chris has just said. Keith, loads of Newcastle fans talk the talk, but pure and simple, you walk the walk, mate. Plain and simple, got the job done. Now our hats have got to go off to you for the rest of our lives. For this roller coaster that we're going to be on from now on. And it's hopefully going to be one that's just going to keep going up and up and up. And that's all because of you, mate.
I find it hard to listen to this, but I do appreciate it. It's like, I didn't want anything. I didn't come for anything. All I wanted to see is my team win. And thanks for letting us. Thanks for believing us and letting us have my head. And Lanks keep saying Justin Barnes, you know, first meet with God is 21 minutes. Me trying to win him over, you know what I mean? He's a hard man and he listened, but thanks to all of you for listening. And you know, like, you know, when time passes by, you know, you just I think when we win something, it'll be a bit like Chris Hall said. What did you feel like when the cat come up? You know, when the program come up, so Nick DeMarco. Well, I think the next time will be when we win something, and it's just great. It's just a great, you know. There's a lot of people haven't supported us on this journey. You know what I mean? There's a lot of big organisations haven't. You know, I've gone through this without a lot of key help I could have had, but I just want to focus on them who did help, like people like you lot. You know what I mean? There was always two podcasts I could go on, and then Al Leeds became a third. So there was always 3 podcasts I felt welcome on. I always felt that Loaded had me back in the same way as NUFC Matters did. And I'll always be grateful for that. You know what I mean? You don't realise that when Newcastle supporters get behind something, we're unstoppable. You know what I mean? We mega. And if there's one guy I want to mention tonight, Gary Milliken. Nobody's ever called me sir ever in my life, and used it tonight. that lad's just put up there. He's called me sir 1,000 times, and you know, I just owe people like that. I mean, like. What an honour to call somebody that, and you know, like he's like what an honour it is to do something for your city and for your area, and I thought when I did that volunteering for under lock, I got the Mayor's Award for daily poisoning on people where I live. I cooked 1,350 meals with my girlfriend and took them around like old people's houses and donated them, and then I did 2,000, nearly 3,000 hours for volunteering. And I thought when I did that, I thought that was maybe the high point in my life. I thought that like I got this award, and me and Karen stood there and got a photograph took, and it felt good. But I've got to be selfish. This feels even better. This feels like, I don't know. I sent me missus. She sent us a message the weekend and said, "How are you doing?" I says, "Order me coffin." Take us now, because you always want to go out in life on a high, and that's how good it was. Order me coffin, and she sent us some back, and you're not going yet. So thanks to all. Yeah, I mean, I'm humbled by it, and this to me is the highest point in my life.
So it should be. Keith. Look, I was lucky enough to be on the Fab Four show with you. When I got to say a few words for you, and you know, you touched on a little conversation that you had with George Mitchell at the game on Sunday, and that you embraced, and he kept saying thank you to you, and you were kind of saying, well, why? And you know, you've allowed us to believe again. You know, you stood up when nobody else did, and you've allowed us to have hope. You know, we've had 14 years of hell under Mike Ashley, under his ownership, 0 success, 0 ambition. The club was going nowhere. You've allowed us that opportunity to have hope again for this club. You know, Daz has said, you know, his little one is able to be a Newcastle supporter. I'm lucky enough that my 3-year-old boy, I can go and buy him a Newcastle top now, because I refuse to do it under the Ashley ownership. I'll be lucky enough that I'll be able to fight him off to become a Newcastle fan instead of a Leicester fan. I'll be lucky enough to be able to take him to St James's Park, and hopefully see lots and lots of wins down the road. And that is because of the massive work that you did. So, you know, don't take yourself lightly. Remind yourself every day of why you did what you did, and everything that comes forward from this day, everything good that comes forward from this new ownership in this new era is down to you and you only. And you need to remember that, because you did things that nobody else would do.
Oh, wow. Can't say anything else.
Well said, Pete. Well said.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Pete inspires. Pete is a teacher.
Positive Pete.
Positive Pete.
Hey, you've allowed us to be positive. I was always known as Positive Pete, but when we talked to Newcastle for 14 years, I was not positive. I'm allowed to be positive again, and you know what? I will be 100%. So thank you.
I was thinking that I was lucky in the way I was doing it, because I saw things you didn't see, and I wasn't allowed to share them. So when I was coming online and saying it's going to happen, I was lucky because I could see things, and I could see things legally, and thought, you can't defend that. And I had to give it to Mike. He said, he says, they're knackered. You know what I mean? You will win this, but then you worry about, will Mike actually take another offer? Because some of the offers might took more cash off the table straight away or whatever. And then you think, will he keep paying the legal bills? Because I knew they were substantial. and you just fear, don't you? Like Pete said, like Chris said, you just fear that cat case won't happen. I bet they don't come on this morning. I thought we'd get blocked and we wouldn't be on the line, but it has happened. It has happened. You do, don't you? You know what I mean? I guess it's like a bride getting married tomorrow, and she thinks that they won't turn up, or they always think something's going to go wrong. And with Newcastle, whenever you're winning, you think something will go wrong. You know,
You're used to it.
The one time we won the league, we never. And you just do with this. I've been lucky because I could see it. But even when I was seeing it and I was trying to say to you, look, it is going to happen, it's going to happen. There was people sitting there saying he's full of lies, he's this, he's that. And they were saying, like, they told us, they put online that I'd gone bankrupt and that all my businesses had gone bankrupt. And I was thinking, well, if this is bankruptcy, I'm enjoying it, like, but it's just, I think incessant abuse is difficult, but I'm just pleased you lot. There was enough of you backed us and believed us, and so all along. And I met you down in Rotherham, Peter, that friendly, and you just come over, and even then you said thanks for what you've done. And I thought we haven't done it yet, but you were believing it was going to happen.
I did.
Positive,
you know what? I believed it because of what you said. So we shared a 30-minute conversation before we went off to the game. And everyone I've spoken to since that's asked, what's Keith like? How is he in real life? And I said, you cannot meet a more passionate man like who supports this club. The way you talked, the way you sat there and you talked about everything that was going on that day, because there was a lot that unfolded on that particular day. But the way in which you spoke with so much passion and so much determination that I couldn't do nothing but believe in you and believe that you were going to make it happen. We weren't all confident in that day, but you still believed there was an opportunity when others around that table on that day didn't believe. You still believed all the way through. And we in the loaded chat, we were all talking on the day that the takeover went through, but I have to be honest, I did think of you on that day and what you would think and how you would react to that, because you've committed so much. You've lost so much earnings, the lot, and it's just amazing to see that we're in this position right now.
It's funny you say that, Pete, because I actually sent a DM to Keith, asking if he wanted to come on our celebration takeover show we did, because it would have been great to have him on and everyone to see. But obviously, he was lucky enough to be at the ground in the Strawberry in first hand. And you know what? He turned around. It was I think it was the Saturday or Sunday. He went, Rich, I've had about 4,000 messages. I'm really sorry. I've just got it now. And I was like, I don't care.
You know what? The real reason why you didn't get your messages, you were too busy hugging Liam Kennedy. That's too busy in that embrace.
I had Steve Wraith on the back of the football club making Rich story.
That's a lie. That's a lie, because Steve was on with us. Steve's got an alibi.
Well, I'll tell you what, you need them, the amount of stick he gets. But thanks to everybody, and just there's nothing untoward behind anything. It's time for me to go. Thanks for everything you've given us. You've made an old fella proud, and I can't thank the fan base enough. You treat me on Sunday, you treat us like a god, and that's what it's felt like since the takeover. I feel like I feel humbled, but I feel as though you're all over the top, and listening to this is hard. Yeah, and to be fair, I was pleased I got off the NUFC Mantis show the other night before they start talking like this, because I couldn't listen to that. So I hit the button and I thought, I'm out of here. And tonight, I thought I can't just do that because they'll think, well, he's just being clever. But I've had to sit and listen to the way Mitch and all them went on and the way Steve Acey and them went on. And when I played that back and watched it, I just sat and bubbled. I just thought and tonight what you just said is just so kind, and thanks to all of you, thanks to all the people that tuned in, sitting here 10 o'clock at night, listening to some daft bloke from Durham just ramble on. But thank you, thanks all of you for what you've done for us.
Thanks again, Keith, and I think that's probably where we're going to leave it. I would say, the gig already. Hit that subscribe button for us Unloaded. we're back with Aloid on Thursday. We're going to go on Loader, going to go on Aloid's show, our mate Aloid, and a mate of Keith as well, of course, Aloid. And we do hope to be back with a show with You Are the Weakest Link. Goodbye to Steve Bruce. I have a feeling that's coming soon. So stay tuned. But we'll say goodbye, and we'll say goodbye to Keith. And thanks for everyone for joining us. Thanks for having a beer or whatever you were drinking with Keith tonight. And Keith, it's goodbye, but we'll see you later.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Nice.